Oh man, I'm still in the high. Here, you go. It's not gonna make a difference.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are just all getting situated. A couple of us might have a cold. We're going to try not to share that with anyone. Welcome to the first regular meeting of the Arlington County Board for 2026. We had our organizational meeting on January 5th, and pleased that you all are with us. We have board members Karen Tonis, Cunningham, Vice Chair Coffey, Board Member Spain, and I have the honor of trying to serve as your chair this year. Welcome to your county board. We'll go ahead and get started. We have all seen since January 5th the video of Renee Good's death in Minneapolis. I ask that we start this morning with 30 seconds of silence for Renee Good and those who have died in ICE's custody this year. Thank you, everyone. I want to speak directly this morning to our immigrant neighbors and families who are living with fear right now. I also want to speak to our community as a whole, which is concerned about ICE and our safety. To our immigrant neighbors, you belong in Arlington. You are part of this community. Your county board is paying attention to what you are experiencing. It has been 17 days since Renee Good died. At least 30 people have died in ICE's custody over the last year, the highest total in 20 years. In Arlington, we estimate that at least 19 people have been removed by ICE over the past year. Those are not abstract numbers. These are Arlington neighbors, parents, workers, and children whose lives are being disrupted and in many cases, almost all cases, harmed. Keeping Arlington residents and visitors safe is perhaps the most important responsibility of a county board member. While the past year has made very clear that the approach ICE has been taking is wholly inconsistent with Arlington County's values and approach to public safety, the death of Ms. Good showed that we are in a new phase of ICE's activities. Last year, the county board took the step of ending all voluntary collaboration with ICE. Last week, new Governor Abigail Spanberger signed an executive order prohibiting the 287G collaboration with ICE, a practice Arlington has never allowed because it has been and always will continue to be inconsistent with our values, but that our previous governor followed. The county board has taken additional steps to do all we can to keep Arlington safe while following the law. To be clear, the law prohibits our public safety professionals and all of us from interfering with the enforcement of federal immigration law. That said, our responsibility is not just to follow the law, but to do everything possible within it to protect our neighbors and reduce harm. That means working together to call 911 when we see ICE in our community. Calling 911 is important because it helps us know when ICE is in Arlington so that we can better pursue Arlington County's law enforcement mission, preventing violence in our community. And it also helps us know they have no legal requirement to tell us when they come into our community. Some of the steps we have taken and some of those we will take, we will discuss publicly. Others within the law, we will not. I believe ICE's approach is designed to provoke right now and to seek out conflict instead of working to de-escalate and avoid violence. I also believe we must speak out against policies that are wrong. It is wrong to separate families. It is wrong to go door to door seeking undocumented individuals. ICE's approach and this administration's approach in Minneapolis is wrong. Communities across the United States, including Arlington and those across Northern Virginia, have felt the impacts of policies not designed to promote public safety, but designed, in my view, to scare our communities and families. We cannot hide from that truth of this moment. At least 19 individuals have been removed from our community by ICE over the past year. For our most vulnerable as a whole, we have a very strong and significant set of supports in place to provide eviction prevention and food security support. I also believe we should offer specific support to the families of those who have been removed. The family members of those deported are often children and are Arlington residents and American citizens. So to that end, I will work over the coming weeks to try to pass targeted, thoughtful, additional resources to meet the immediate needs of those families who have been where individuals have been deported. I believe doing so is consistent with Arlington's ideals. Third, Renee Good's death. A few truths. Claiming that Ms. Good is a domestic terrorist is unacceptable. The doctrine of self-defense does not apply. The elements of a criminal assault by the ICE agent certainly appear to this recovering lawyer, albeit not a criminal lawyer, to be present. A full and fair investigation absolutely must occur. The nonviolent protesters who met just outside this building last Sunday called out these truths. Colleagues, each of you stood with them, and I do too. Renee Good's death must be understood in a larger context. Over the past year, at least 30 people have died in ICE custody. Too often, these deaths are met with silence or attempts to justify what cannot be justified. Finally, I want to close by sharing 2 words based on my admittedly imperfect Spanish. As I do, I want to point out that roughly 21.9% of Arlington residents are foreign-born, including Mr. Carantonis. Our immigrant population is not just Latino, but it is as diverse as 22204, the world in a zip code. The 2 words are miedo and juntos. Miedo means fear in English. We cannot prevent Arlingtonians from being scared. We cannot interfere with federal immigration law, as I said. We can, however, do all we can to try to make people less fearful. We can say no miedo to ICE policies that are built on and intended to scare our immigrant families. No miedo to all our residents. Second, juntos. Juntos means together. In a concrete sense, we cannot be fully with all of our residents and with our immigrant communities and families throughout your day-to-day lives. Federal immigration law, as I said, is still outside of our direct control. We can, however, stand with you as fully as a local government can, for we are closest to the people of all the federal, state, and local slices of government. That is what juntos means, together, not just in words, but in action, in presence, and in solidarity. Arlington's vision statement says we will be a safe place where every person is valued and important. That is the best of Arlington, and I believe in it with my whole heart. I know the members of this board do too. As the elected leaders closest to you, we have that real human responsibility now when our larger federal government is failing us on immigration policy, more than ever. I know we will do all we can to deliver those values in this difficult moment. Thank you. There's no easy segue. We will go on to the rest of our meeting. It just seemed like some of those words had to be said this morning. We will have an opportunity for all colleagues to add their thoughts. But first, I ask that we go through the beginning part of our meeting, which will first go to a couple of slides, with one of which appropriately is resources for our immigrants as well as our federal workers. Mr. Clerk, can you show those slides? I won't dwell particularly on these slides because I suspect that not our entire community and probably not 100 people are watching this meeting at this moment. But I will say, if you know someone who's a federal worker, share these resources. Many of our federal employees are providing over the demise of their life's work. Others have lost their jobs. I think I've tried to outline why immigrant resources are so critical. There's a whole large amount of resources and details that are really important that I know colleagues will touch on a little bit later. That's that slide. Please visit those websites. Thank you. General instructions. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. A few announcements for in-person speakers. The podium height can be adjusted by using the up and down arrow buttons at the right as you face us. If you're submitting documents as part of your testimony, please hand them to the clerk. I believe one person has already done that, along with your name and contact information. For remote speakers, please keep your microphones muted and your cameras off until you are called on to speak. Occasionally, we may need to get up and stretch our legs. However, there are speakers and monitors in the back so we can continue to see and hear the meeting. With that, we'll now begin public comment. As a reminder, the time is reserved for topics that are not related to recent or upcoming public hearings. To help ensure fairness and efficiency, we have a one speaker per topic rule. If you are here with a coordinated group, we ask that you please designate one representative to speak on that topic. That representative can note that there are others present who share your views. As Mr. Carantonis did last year, you can use the sign for applause. I also personally find it particularly powerful if you support someone who's speaking, stand behind them so we can see that you're testifying silently to that point. If you'd like to share more detailed input or engage in a deeper discussion with us, we encourage you to attend an Open Door Monday session or email all of us at countyboard@arlingtonva.us. More information on those avenues, particularly Open Door Monday, is available on our website. The clerk will call two speakers at a time. Help us keep things moving. Please come up to the front and be ready to speak when your name is called. Please see our clerks, Mr. Kushner and Mr. Davis, outside. If you have any questions, with that, Mr. Clerk, will you please call the first two speakers?
Certainly. Our first public comment speaker this morning is Andrew Bryant, followed by Julie Lee.
Mr. Bryant.
Is Mr. Bryant here? Yes.
Here he is. Welcome and good morning.
All right, this is on. Good morning, Chair DeFerranti, members of the board. I'm Andrew Bryant, a resident of Douglas Park. I'm speaking today to encourage the county board to take bold action in updating the comprehensive plan to encourage the construction of abundant housing options. The current comprehensive plan's goals and objectives have not changed since 1960. 66 years ago, but Arlington has. We've gone from being a sleepy suburb to an economically and culturally vibrant community that is a key node in the Washington region. Our county also faces serious affordability challenges. The necessities of daily life, such as housing, push residents to the limits of what they can afford to pay, and sadly, encourage many to leave this great county to live elsewhere. The only way to reduce housing costs is by building enough housing to match demand. It can be done even in high-demand metropolitan areas. The decrease in housing costs in areas such as Austin and Raleigh are proof of that. Our comprehensive plan should support this. Not only will housing become more affordable, but each of the 12 elements of the plan will be enhanced when people feel secure in their housing. Arlington's full of neighborhoods like East Falls Church that are connected to transit, have wonderful amenities, but are underutilized and ripe for more homes. An updated comprehensive plan will help these neighborhoods realize their potential and be able to be enjoyed by more Arlingtonians. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant.
Our next speaker, yes, is Julie Lee, followed by Audrey Clement.
Ms. Lee.
I'm Julie Lee from Glen Carlin, here to address the necessity and urgency for a lot coverage study for single-family homes. I represent a diverse and growing group of 26 civic associations from across the county who continue to ask you to keep the board's commitment to conduct a lot coverage study that includes much more than impervious surfaces. A study of impervious surfaces does not address the real issue, the size of the building footprint. The 24 staff report shows that the real change has been the increase in the building footprint, with only slight increases in other impervious surfaces. Delaying this study means that even more smaller, more affordable homes will continue to be destroyed and more mature trees clear-cut, while the proliferation of these huge, ugly, multi-million-dollar white boxes with their 5 to 7 bedrooms and 7 to 9 baths is destroying the fabric of our communities. Arlingtonians want smaller, more affordable single-family homes and some green space. A complete lot coverage study must include a definition of lot coverage, including all impervious surfaces, main building footprints, a look at the existing loopholes and the 35-foot height limit, the extra 3 to 5% coverage for front porches and detached garages, and a review of oversized lot problems. It must explore limiting large homes on small lots, strengthening tree protection, and restricting the size of all single-family homes. Live up to your commitment, honor the concerns of Board Member Gutschall, address the problems recognized more than 12 years ago, and conduct a comprehensive lot coverage study now. And congratulations, Mark, on 10 years. I hope you stay 10 more. Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Lee. Next speaker.
Of course, our next speaker is Audrey Clement, followed by Mr. David Wingard.
Welcome, members of the board and the county manager. I'm Audrey Clement from Westover. I've opposed the defund the police movement since 2020 for one simple reason. I myself have had no issues with Arlington County Police since locating here 22 years ago. That's a remarkable admission coming from an outspoken critic of county government. Yet a recent incident made me a committed ACPD booster. On January 2nd around dusk, I took a spin on my bike over the I-66 bridge on Patrick Henry Drive onto the 4 Mile Run Trail. When I got home an hour later, I discovered that the cell phone in my jacket pocket was gone. A Samsung app gave its approximate location near Patrick Henry and North 11th Street, but it was too dark to search for it. On advice of a neighbor at Westover Walgreens, I called ACPD's non-emergency number on her phone. Within 15 minutes, Officer Jay Shorter, who identified himself as a 6-month recruit, arrived at my door. He asked me a few questions about the phone and said, quote, "I am 98% certain I have it." An hour earlier, a neighborhood youth found it near Westover Baptist Church and turned it over to the officer, who put it into evidence at police headquarters. Officer Shorter drove me to headquarters, got the phone out of storage, verified that I was the owner, returned it to me, and drove me home. On our way through Clarendon, he alerted another driver that her headlights were out and continued on. The driver turned on her headlights, clearly relieved that she wasn't going to get cited. In my opinion, Officer Shorter is a good Samaritan and a good cop, and much of the credit goes to ACPD.
Thank you, Dr. Clement. Next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is David Wingard, followed by Greg Kuraz.
Buenos dias, Señor Schwartz, Señor Carantanis, Señor DeFerranti, Señor Spain Sr., Señora Cunningham y Señora Coffey. ¿Cómo están ustedes? Hoy mi tópico es cómo puedo ir en pública en el año 2026. Mucha gente tiene una máscara. Tú sabes que una prohibición de las máscaras es una Virginia Code. Hay situaciones que es una excepción. Gracias. Adiós.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Our next speaker is Greg Kuraz, followed by Ms. Kushori Mahulakar.
Good morning, board and staff. I'm Greg Perez, a resident of Arlington County for more than 50 years and a retired detective from the Arlington County Police Department. I'm bringing before you the law enforcement community's concerns about Virginia House Bill 1314, which removes qualified immunity for law enforcement officers in Virginia. Currently, there's a process for suing when there is especially egregious conduct by law enforcement officers. But with this bill, officers are more exposed to personal lawsuits, even when they are acting reasonably, lawfully, and in line with their training and department policy. Law enforcement officers often must assess situations with limited information and split-second decisions based on their training, experience, and department policy. They do not need to worry about possibly facing multi-day trials dissecting split-second decisions with the associated defense costs and risk of financial loss. This can be dangerous if the officer hesitates in crucial moments, putting themselves and the community in danger. I know from personal experience as an Arlington police officer, having been shot while stopping a possible robbery rape suspect with 2 other officers and eventually having to retire early. Arlington is already facing a shortage of qualified police officers. HB 1314 is likely to make it much worse as current officers leave and candidates reconsider coming to Arlington despite the recent pay increase, thank you, because Virginia has removed qualified immunity. In a statement, the Virginia State Police Association said, "We believe accountability and public trust are essential, but accountability must be grounded in fair legal principles. HB 1314 abandons that balance. Please consider asking the Virginia House to stop this bill from being enacted due to the probable adverse impact on our police department." Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to advise you that maybe you might want to change that opening statement. Please call 558-2222 and don't overload 911. That would be as efficient and would work with the same people.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross.
Our next speaker is Ms. Kishori Mahulikar, followed by Sarah Babb.
Slides.
Give me just a moment. Sorry, a moment.
Okay. Take it.
There we go. Thank you.
All right. During the April 5th, 2025 County Board meeting, my statement was cut off twice because, in your opinion, Takis, I was speaking on the same topic, the abduction of Arlington resident Dr. Badr Khan Suri by ICE, as someone who had already spoken before me. When pressed by the crowd on the one speaker per topic rule, you said, change the rules is a different thing. You can ask for that. But we have these rules right now. In fact, you noted multiple times in January of 2025 and here in November that changing the one speaker per topic rule was something you would consider. Next slide. Now in the new year, I am here to ask you to change the rules because time and time again, we have witnessed this rule used arbitrarily and selectively and often weaponized against statements regarding divesting Arlington from Israel's genocide in Palestine. Over the last year, there was no consistency to this rule. At a board meeting on May 13th, 2025, you cut off a speaker who was talking about AED's connection with genocide because the slides look similar to a speaker who was speaking about the Virginia Israel Advisory Board, even calling up a guard, though none of you were being threatened. On July 19th, 2025, you let 4 speakers speak about the dangers of ICE, a topic I, too, am very concerned about. But where did your steadfast adherence to the one speaker per topic rule go? Still, that did not stop you from scolding another young woman for speaking about how our industries fund genocide. Next slide. To me, the most egregious negligence of this so-called rule came on October 18th when you let 3 speakers smear Palestinians and Muslims using anti-Muslim language, calling them jihadists, recounting tales of cleaning dog puke with traditional Palestinian scarves. None of those speakers were interrupted. The only person who was interrupted again was me. Next slide. After witnessing how this rule played out this year, there's no other reasonable conclusion to come to than this rule is being used to silence certain topics entirely. If I actually believe this rule was in place in the interest of time, I would have seen far more speakers cut off, but that is not what happened. Fearing speech is not the same thing as fearing time constraints. This rule was not used responsibly. In January, you said to me that in April that the rules can change.
Thank you, Ms. Mahulikar.
So please change this rule.
Thank you. Thank you to you as well as all the public speakers. I will now, that's right, we have one more public speaker. Mr. Clerk.
One additional, yep.
Thank you.
Which is Ms. Sarah Babb, and if you give me just a moment.
Thank you in advance.
Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Babb.
I have
got your
slides.
slides, just a moment.
Sorry.
It's all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I am a 10-year Arlington resident, 11-year Arlington resident, and this is my first time addressing the board. I'm now raising 2 children in Waycroft Woodlawn, and I love being part of Arlington. It is a dream community, despite problems. And as we chart the course for 2026 and beyond, it's very important that the decisions and investments that we make today that we'll be proud of in 10 years when they really start to pay off. And we believe that the best way to do that is to engage our civic body. The people know we are so lucky to have such an engaged and informed and active populace here. And to that effort, we should look to them and what are they already doing to help us guide and inspire our actions. So with my time, I'd like to draw attention to 2 local civic action groups who are helping map that out. First, you'll see Arlington Neighbors United for Humanity, an open letter to Stephen and Casey Miller. We won't read all of this, but please skip forward to a slide with the Arlington County vision. Arlington strives to be a diverse and inclusive, world-class urban community with secure, attractive residential and commercial neighborhoods where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is important. Please hold that in mind as we move forward. One more slide. And then another. You can find this on their social media if you want to read the whole thing. Georgetown scholar and Arlingtonian Dr. Badr Khansuri is still under threat, and his family isn't even able to raise, as I understand it, the money he needs to fight the legal oppression from the state, and we owe it to him to figure this out. Now, please move forward, not too quickly, but go to the red slide that says AAD, and then we'll move forward to the next group with my last 20 seconds, which is Arlington for Palestine. They have done an incredible amount of research, and we should be very proud of how, when I first started coming, they were really antagonistic to y'all. And now you've opened up and you've made them feel important, and we appreciate that. So let's quickly go through their demands. Adopt a public ethics policy. Move next, please. Reprioritize key targeted industries. We don't want murder drones and surveillance. We want community investment. One more. Thank you. And one more. And free Palestine. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mabb. Appreciate it. Thank you to each of you for standing as you have before and as a suggestion. So what I'll do, and what is our typical habit, is to respond to each of those who have come to speak. And I think that everybody who's come to speak has stayed, so I will try to respond in kind. With respect to the first speaker, Mr. Bryant, I will offer brief comments, and then I'll ask my colleagues at the end, Ms. Cunningham and Ms. Coffey, Vice Chair Coffey, to add to this, to these set of comments, because they are the leads for the comprehensive plan update. Broadly, I think that there's amongst those who are willing to engage significantly in housing policy, there's consensus. I don't know about perfect consensus, but consensus that housing supply is a major, major problem. And I believe that we need to take actions to address it. And aligning our comprehensive plan with that widely understood view is something that I fully support. There'll be additional discussion exactly how we do that. I'll leave that to Ms. Cunningham and Vice Chair Coffey. Ms. Lee, thank you for coming, and it's good to see you again. Thank you for your exhortation to Mr. Schwartz to stay another 10 years. But I'll say this with respect to your concerns. Implicit in your comments is there are multiple policy purposes for addressing impervious surfaces and also lot coverage broadly. One of those purposes is the way that the buildings look. I'm not here to tell you that I think every new home that is white with black shutters is particularly inspiring, especially when they're whole subdivisions that look the exact same. There's also the affordability of homes. Ramblers are a different cost than new, larger homes. And then there's stormwater. I think there are a lot of complex policy issues at play in this. And I would say that stormwater is the biggest of those concerns for me. I don't believe that we can easily address affordability through land use and the size of the box. And so that's why our current approach is what I would support. I think there's been policy detail to it. And I know colleagues will speak a little bit more to it. Thank you for coming in and your comments. Dr. Clement, thank you so much for sharing a positive story. My theme, my first comments were joy comes in the morning at the beginning of this year. It turns out that there's not so much joy even in the start of January 2026. Thank you for sharing a story about the positive and great actions of our police department. You can imagine differently than county board members, but police officers hear much more often about what they should have done or did wrong than what they did right. So thank you very much for your comments. And certainly Good Samaritan seems to me to apply. Next, I'll just go on. We do have Spanish translators. Mr. Wingard will go forward from that. Mr. Curaz, I think is the pronunciation. I think he's with the last name DeFerranti.
Greg is good.
You know, Greg, thank you for your work for Arlington County Police Department and for bringing to our attention this bill. There's a lot of different pieces to the bill as I understand it, and I don't understand it close to perfectly. We will be in consultation with our attorney, Mr. Samuel, as well as our legislative liaison regarding the bill. I am aware of the underlying tectonics of and the balance that we seek to strike between sovereign immunity as well as proper oversight of our public safety professionals. So, you know, there's that oversight, and then there's, as I understand it, the bill has some components of what oversight could be of federal law enforcement as well. And I've articulated earlier today that my level of trust for our ICE approach is near zero or very low. So that's what I'll say on that. I will be interested in talking after, should we have time, about which number to call. I believe that because we are not informed regularly when ICE comes into our community, 911 is the appropriate place to call. But I fully endorse your concept of if it's not an emergency or it's not a pressing public safety issue, don't call 911 because they get a lot of calls. So thank you very much. Ms. Mahulakar, is that close? Okay. You know, DeFerrantino is how people used to, which is not accurate as my name. Thank you very much for coming in. We did have some discussion and consideration on January 5th of our one speaker per topic rule. I take it as a fair point that that's not the robust discussion that you'd like. I'll start at the end of your comments by saying, absolutely, I am thrilled, and I'm not saying that it's going to continue in perpetuity. You all and we have come a long way. And at the Economic Development Commission meeting, I won't claim that I was perfect, but several of you were there and you made great points. And you did so in a way that I thought was effective and respectful. So I'm thrilled with that. There's certainly more detail about each of your points within that. I am nice. I also like to try to align with colleagues and implement the rules as we have them in a consistent way. I would also say that we had a good meeting with me, and others have met with other colleagues. Following up with one of those meetings I see as helpful. That does not mean, as you know from the meeting, that I'm going to end up agreeing with everything that folks say. But I will say that, you know, I'll just leave it with there are children and women who starved, and it's not lost on me, the cause that you guys are mentioning. I'll just stop there. Ms. Babb, thank you for coming in, for your comments. I felt like it was an extraordinary balancing act of speaking truth, but somehow not moving in to a prior topic, and I'm grateful for that. And thank you for your slide deck and the various issues that you raised. They're helpful. I hope we can continue the dialogue, and I'm mindful that that we are all balancing our proximity to a federal administration that many of us did not vote for, do not believe in, but at the same time, we must state again and again and again, political violence is unacceptable, and there are sort of parameters that we're trying to work with and through. That's plenty from me, probably more than my promise to be succinct to colleagues. I will pass it to colleagues. Colleagues, what I suggest is we do 2 rounds. One is on the 6 speakers, and start with that. And then second, should you have any comments about immigration, we do a second round that allows you to speak to that if you should wish so. So I see one light. I'll start with Ms. Vice Chair Coffey. I'm going to get it right. Go ahead.
I appreciate it. Okay, well, we have a goal of having our responses to public comment as a collective be shorter than the comments we received this year. Last year, I think we were talking more than you all were sometimes. On comp plan, I think this is still moving. We've concluded the engagement phase, and we are now letting staff take the time to analyze, write, draft, come up with a game plan before we come back to the public with additional updates, and that we are hoping to target for the February meeting, at least an interim update. But we are working on it, and I think to not try and repeat too much from Mr. DeFranti, I was able to speak with one of our new delegates, John McAuliffe, over this past weekend and use my favorite metaphor, which is housing is a lot like musical chairs. If you don't add chairs to the game, someone ends up without one. And I think that is, importantly, how we need to think about housing production, because we can shift around who is in what form of housing, who is in an apartment or shelter or whatever. But if we are not physically building more space for people to live, there are going to be people who are going without. And so our comprehensive plan is really a critical part of guiding how we achieve adding more to our community. Lot coverage, I think Mr. DeFranti covered decently. I think, we will continue to have conversations around impervious area. Obviously, if the total amount of impervious area, which includes building footprint, is set and is less than what it currently is, that will, by implication, affect the building footprint unless people are choosing to get rid of things like driveways and sidewalks entirely, which I don't imagine that they will. So the analysis is ongoing. I am glad for all the engagement. I think they've been well-attended engagement sessions, and I think we're due for an update on that probably pretty soon. On the legislation, more than 2,500 bills have been introduced in the General Assembly this session. I have the honor to serve as the board's legislative liaison, and I know that our team is flagging anything and everything that has local government implications, so I'm confident that they will be reviewing and giving their best assessment of how to proceed. Fortunately, things that have local government implications are covered often by the whole coalition of the Association of Counties and the Virginia Municipal League. So we often are not needing to take lead on certain things, but we do review. We have a very thorough process. And so if there are problematic implications for the county, we will catch things. One speaker per topic. I want to start by validating that I think that there are times where the rule has been applied unfairly. I think that has been a conversation I have had with our new chair this year, that if this rule persists, that there does need to be a consistent application across the board, no matter what. I've been very, very clear about that. And so I hope, we are retaining it this year. We had a lot of conversations in our planning meetings about what it looks like for this year. And in order to balance that, I'm not sure Mr. DeFranti added this in, we are adding town halls. So we will have May as our targeted date for the first one.
It's easy to remember. May the force be with you.
May the 4th. Okay, so May 4th is our first targeted date. And so that will be a full open forum. We invite you all to come and continue your advocacy in all the other ways, and now town halls as an additional way as well. And on community active groups, Sarah, thanks for sharing, and I'm sure there are people watching who didn't know that those were out there. So thank you, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. You added critical information both on the application as well as on the town halls that I think is really important. That was a key part of our discussion. I missed that. I'll share with whoever would like to go next. I see Ms. Cunningham, you're light. Are you ready, or are there other colleagues? I also see Mr. Spain. I'm pretty flexible.
Yeah, I'm happy to go as well. So on comp plan, we are the joint liaisons. Again, will be an update in February, but I think it's really important to keep centered as a community what we're doing right now and what we're not doing. The effort underway that was the engagement in the fall was really to open up a dialogue about, as a community today, what's most important to us. And that's not necessarily to change any of the comp plan elements. It is to listen and to potentially draft a sentence or two or a preamble of some sort for the introductory chapter that would recognize the community we are today and some of the challenges that we face today. I think that the two we've heard most about, both in this engagement and in last year's listening sessions, is climate or environment writ broadly, and diversity, and being a community that's welcoming. So I think comp plan is a big topic, and it can create some anxieties because it does inform our decisions, but we are going very slowly, frankly, into this and may completely pause after this. We expect that the staff will bring us the engagement feedback in February, sometime after that, a draft of what they think would reflect the community, and then there'll be all kinds of conversation. We may or may not adopt it, and we may or may not proceed further to make any changes to the comp plan at this time. So stay tuned, but that's where we are in that. Housing is super, super important, and it is also a deeply complicated issue, especially in a community that is as landlocked as we are. I shared in my opening remarks that we are a leader amongst the regions in our current focus and delivery of our housing targets. So we have 2030 housing targets as a region. We are delivering those. Unfortunately, we're delivering much more rental than ownership, and that is an issue that we need to grapple with a little bit. But I think we are delivering more homes. We're delivering more affordable homes. We're expanding our emergency housing. And so we have a lot of work to do, but we should not despair because we're doing a lot of work, and it's hard work. I think later this year, and I'm not clear on the timing, but we are working to reboot what was called Housing Arlington, which was intended to be a broader conversation about the tools and the techniques that we might as a community, both as a government and as individuals, use to meet future housing needs. And Ms. Coffey and I have had an initial conversation with staff and expect that they will be putting a plan forward soon that will include broad engagement so that we can come back to the table and talk about housing and bring ideas forward, think about what philanthropic opportunities there may be and what government opportunities as well as private sector. So stay tuned on that. And I think I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mr. Karantonis, and then Mr. Spain, if that's okay with the two of you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll be very brief. On the comp plan discussion, I want to remind, thank you for coming in and testifying here on this today. You've heard from my colleagues that, first, reporting out on the current process is due very, very soon. I want to remind everybody that the comprehensive plan has 12 elements, and out of these, we have already updated relatively recently 9. So in a sense, the parts of the plan are more recent as the envelope, the guiding philosophy of the plan, and the number one thing that needs to happen and is to actually catch up with the envelope, which is the introductory chapter. So I look really forward to that. The engagement in this has been intensive. It's still for many people, especially in these times, it remains sometimes a elusive and abstract, complex topic. I very much hope that we will be able to see the very practicality of having an updated first chapter of the comp plan. And this discussion is coming up. The second thing I want to say to Ms. Lee, thank you for coming to testify today. I will have the opportunity to talk more about that. I've been talking to several civic associations about, the wisdom of doing the things that we can do earlier and better, and there are lower hanging fruits, like, for example, regulating plantable space as opposed to things that are way more complex and have way more unforeseen consequences for many, which is doing both, like plantable space and building footprint at the same time. There has to be a sequence and a strategy behind that. I agree with you that what is at stake here is actually the affordability and the housing production. We may not always agree on the details of that, but the direction is very clear. And finally, to Mr. Kurz, we have had a lot of conversations here about the issue that you bring up, but I want to state one thing. I would always call 911 when I see a nice officer in my neighborhood, because there is nothing in the nation that suggests to me that something very bad will happen when these people show up. not only directly because of their action, but also for the collateral consequences. We had people having a heart attack here because somebody 3 doors down the stairs, downstairs in a building has kicked in a door. So 911 is the best solution right now, and we have to be able to put these resources at the availability of our citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Mr. Spain, you can critique me for not going to you next when I should have. Take us home on this round.
I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, Mr. Chair. You get one time. Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chair and colleagues. I'll speak to perhaps 3 areas that I heard in the public comment, and I think, you said we're going to have a round 2. First to Ms. Clement, and thank you for talking about your experience with our police department. They do some really good work, and we recognize that. However, there are still areas of concern that we need to address. I happened to take a ride along for about 3 or 4 hours last month with one of our police officers and got to see quite a bit. But what you talked about is indicative of some of the great work that our men and women and others are doing at the police department. We have just went through collective bargaining, and at a tune of $5 million that, we're going to see they are now the highest paid officers in this region. That said, I think we also need to consider alternative safety models when it comes to public safety, because there has been this, militarization, quite honestly, across America in many areas of police departments when their goal is all about protecting and serving and ensuring our folks are safe. Secondly, let me just talk about housing, and then I'll say something about Arlington for Palestine. As a single-family homeowner and have 3 children, all of which went to APS schools and now are renters, and one's an owner, let me tell you, affordability and housing are serious issues of concern of mine. And finding creative and innovative ways to ensure that access to housing and there's no barriers is something that is a very high priority for me. Right. So you heard my colleagues talk about a comp plan in the different phases, impervious services and other things that we're doing. All that kind of ties in, but we need more housing. And I hear what you're saying about grandiose McMansions being built and taking up all the land. We can do better. And so you have my commitment, I think the commitment of the board to look at creative ways to do that. Finally, I want to thank those from the Arlington for Palestine group and others that have come here today, as you've had in many months and years to come in and talk about the tragedy that is going on abroad. And you've had extended conversations not only with myself, but with our colleagues. And as the chair talked about, I think we've moved the needle collectively in conversations for quite some time. And spare me, you did also met with our county manager. Thank you, county manager. But let me say this, there is still more work to be done. And what we're looking for and what I hope we can do this year is move the needle and have some tangible outcomes. So continue to stay persistent and convey your thoughts and concerns. Will we agree on everything? No. But I believe there's a way for us to come together as elected leaders and as folks of the community to really make a difference. And so I think you have my commitment in that regard to continue these conversations. You've also had sidebar and set communications with our acting director of AED and one of our deputy county managers, of which I was there, and Susan Cunningham. So great. I mean, we're working. We're moving in the right direction. And something that I've always said, right? Failure is not an option. So we're going to do something. What that something is, I'm not sure, but it's going to require persistent conversations alongside my colleagues and Mr. Clerk. This image is for later, not for now. Thank you very much when we get to public comments in round 2. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to have a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Spain.
Later.
So I referenced earlier, usually we have a goal of, as Ms. Coffey said, we talk less than the public comment folks talk, but we do want to try and address concerns. And I said earlier that I would provide colleagues with a round of an opportunity to comment on immigration. I am grateful for folks tolerating my initial statement. And I think I hasten to add that none of you should remotely take a backseat to me on immigration. Each of you have led and been outstanding on it. So it's over to you to see who would like to speak. You don't have to speak forever, but certainly if I've spoken 7 minutes, 30 seconds, I'm not going to cut you off. So we'll start with Mr. Spain.
Okay. Now with the slide. Mr. Chair, you got it's you want me to be sarcastic, but I will not. I will not take 7 minutes. And I put this image together because my conversation this morning is going to be hopefully pulled together in a way that it makes us all think. I received a text message also this morning from an elected member here in Arlington, and I'm going to quote what this person said. I shared the image of the young the preschooler that was in Minnesota. And this person came to me and said, you know, JD, there are no words for the trauma that is being caused. 7 days ago, I sat in the audience at Wakefield High School with my colleagues on the county board and with residents from across our community gathered to honor the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. During that program, I heard a powerful remark written by Judge and former chair of the county board, William Bill Newman. But it was shared by Marcia Payne in his absence. He provided thoughts about Lady Justice, and that reflection has stayed with me. It also led me to think more about the Statue of Liberty and what she is meant to represent for all of us. Over the past several weeks, we've heard many perspectives on immigration, on the tragedy in Minnesota, and on images that have shaken our conscience, including the image of the preschool child in custody that I mentioned a few moments ago. We have also seen what I believe is the continued weaponization and militarization of federal agencies to instill fear in our communities. Rather than relitigate those debates, I want to focus on what I believe is our responsibility as county board and as public servants. As a beloved community, and one of you referenced our mission and what we believe in here, but as a beloved community, as a commonwealth, and as a nation, we are confronting some of the same challenges this country faced during the civil rights era, an era my family, growing up in the South, knows firsthand and has shared countless stories with me about. I have said this before, friends, and I will continue to say this again. This is our civil rights moment. And for those of us seated on this dais, and the question, quite honestly, is not abstract. What are we willing to do with our authority entrusted to us to build trust, provide reassurance, and lead with courage and integrity? When I think about the Statue of Liberty and the Lady of Justice together, I think about Arlington, not as a symbol, but as a home I've called this place for 18 years, a home to where people live, work, raise their families, and depend on decisions made in this room. Liberty means dignity, opportunity, and a voice for every resident. But liberty, my friends, alone is not enough. Lady Justice reminds us that fairness is what makes freedom real. Her scales calls on us to govern responsibly, to weigh the consequences of our decisions, and to apply all of our laws equitably, especially when it's difficult. And I'm almost done. Because liberty without justice becomes just a privilege, and justice without liberty becomes control. Arlington, my friends, is strongest when we hold both in a balance. That balance is our responsibility, and it is the legacy we shape with every vote that we take up here on this dais. So when you put these side by side, as I had on this image here today, they form a complete civic ethic. Arlington County, we see the logo and all that there, the place where governance happens. The Statue of Liberty, the values of freedom, inclusion, and hope. Lady Justice, the discipline of fairness, balance, and accountability. And I will repeat as I close here. Liberty, my friends, without justice becomes privilege. Justice without liberty becomes control. And a county without both loses the trust of our people. We are one Arlington. You've heard me say that before, and we have your back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spain, for those remarks. I see the next slide is, I'm flexible, but I see the next slide is Mr. Carantonis. We'll go to Mr. Carantonis.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I had thought of a few remarks, but I want to go back to something else that comes more from the heart. Yesterday, hundreds of thousands probably of Minnesotans, Minneapolitans, have taken to the street. They stopped working, they stopped sending their kids to school, day after day after day, but especially yesterday, they went to the street to show the nation and us here that what is happening in Minneapolis, as an extension of what was happened before in Los Angeles and Chicago and in the District of Columbia right here and so many other places, is a continuation of an assault of the executive branch of the government to anything our Constitution, our local governments, every other branch of government stands for. It's not only the legality, but the morality of power that is here at stake. I cannot do politics on the base of, or on the aftermath of an innocent bystander being gunned down, of 34 deaths in custody from last year, from the day of inauguration until today, of converting law enforcement into a military intervention with all the trappings and appearance and posture of some sort of regime change. Our cities, our neighborhoods, door to door, are invaded right now, and this makes me very fearful. I am not only concerned, I'm afraid. In a democracy, nobody should be afraid. Liberty and justice relate exactly as Mr. Spain said. They check each other and they make each other happen. But right now, I'm afraid that the checks and balances are not there, and that we as a community have to develop new, innovative ways to resist and preserve our communities. They will have to be worked in the mesh of civic relationship, in the civic sphere, as they are happening every day, everywhere in Arlington. But I have absolutely no doubt that we are under attack, and we need to understand that as such. So I'm asking you for something. Please stay with us. Please stay with your local government. Enable us to help those who are helping right now. The tens, dozens of organizations, the faith community, the civic engagement environment that we have. Look what happened in Minneapolis. Who was out in the streets, making noise, showing what's happening? These were our neighbors, people like me and you. And this is absolutely great. The only thing that gives me hope right now, the only thing I will be working towards every day is to engage and enable and support this community. One Arlington, one community, truly. But it's the only thing that I can see being resilient enough to resist that onslaught. The Minneapolis Police Department, I read that it has a nominal force of about 600 people. The presence of the federal law enforcement is now over 3,000. If this is not infringing the 10th Amendment, I don't know what is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis. Ms. Cunningham.
Thank you, Chair, and I share the froggy voice cold that we've all been sharing up here. And sharing is a good place to start. So we do not all agree on policy, even in this room, in this community, much less across our whole nation. But our Constitution is a touchstone, and it is fundamental. And I think as we experience the unfolding of events in our country, we are grounded in each of the amendments to the Constitution, the 1st, the 4th, the 5th, the 10th, the 14th. And it's important to know that we, as individuals present in America, have the right to speak our truth, to know our rights, and to ensure due process. That's the bedrock of public safety, which I think is where our chair started us today. And local law enforcement, as well as state law enforcement, I'm wearing white to honor our new governor today, and each of us really play an important role in keeping those freedoms alive and supporting each other. As Mr. Karantonis mentioned, and as all of you are still bundled up, having come in out of the -1 feels like temperature today, tens of thousands of people gathered yesterday in -30 or -50, I heard in some parts, wind chills, to stand up for the Constitution and to share their truths and to speak their minds and to honor each other's rights. And that was the biggest gathering and protest in all of Minnesota's history, probably not the coldest, but it was cold. And I think we're all moved by the fear, the chaos, and the uncertainty about what comes next. But here in Arlington, I just want us to remain grounded in the Constitution, in the spirit of caring for one another, in the spirit of civil rights leaders like our own Joan Trupar Mulholland, who said, when I had a chance to help do something, I would seize it. So we ask the community to do the same. If you see something, say something, and know who to call. If it's an emergency, 911. If it's not, and you just have a concern, 703-558-2222 is the non-emergency line. It goes to the same people. You just get queued a little differently. And for First Amendment activity that you may be planning or participating in, let us know so that we can make sure you have the right permits and support the safety of all so that all can speak their truths and exercise their First Amendment rights safely. I think we've given some updates throughout the year, and I imagine we will give a more fulsome one in February, but we are, as a body here and as a county, working to be as nimble as possible to respond to these changes. But we welcome your input about what more you need. Some of the things we've been doing with our local and regional and state partners is working on identification, confirming that everyone is identifying and confirming that uniforms are clear, limiting mask use by law enforcement, which is at a state level, and then clarifying our roles so that we are clear that we cannot impede immigration activity. We cannot impede federal law enforcement, but we have a role in local law enforcement. And then finally, managing privacy issues like license plate readers and other things so that they are restricted to Arlington Code and or Commonwealth Code. Really, really important items. And there may be blind spots that we don't know yet about, so do not be bashful about sharing them with us. And then finally, I'll just end with, as Mr. Karantonis said, we are a community. There are nonprofit partners, there are faith partners, there are neighbors and young, old alike who are here for one another. Do what you can to be present and to care. If you need help finding ways to contribute time or money to support our community and whatever passion you have, let us know and we'll connect you. Volunteer Arlington and the Arlington Community Foundation can be helpful there. And just all in all, be there together We are here together. Your local government's here to support you and to ensure that your rights are protected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Bring us home, Vice Chair Coffey.
We'll try to. I don't know that I've ever felt a more fragile moment in our nation, in our community, locally, nationally. There's so much going on that I think has been historically something we felt, could never happen here. Things that if we saw them happening in other nations would cause us to be intervening and jumping at the humanitarian cause that is the freedoms and liberties this country has stood for decades and now centuries. And I think we've all seen the horrifying things happening across the country. And as horrifying as that is, I think one thing that deserves some additional time and attention is really the narratives and the lack of facts that we can all rely on when you have federal sources putting out stories that are visibly untrue and that are proliferating and fracturing the truth across the country. When you have people believing what they hear because they're hearing it from what should be a serious source, but then when you have videos that can show that's just not what happened, what that does to us as a society is irreparable in some ways. We know that there are things we should be able to trust. I think back to kind of, second grade language arts and going through what a primary source is, and that, when you look for that .gov, it should be trustworthy. And the feeling that we can't do that anymore, that we have AI augmented images being posted by our own government to prove a point, that there's propaganda floating around that shows something that just isn't happening, that just isn't real. And how do we as a society and as a community come together to figure out what we can believe in? Is one of the most important things to me right now, I think, in addition to all the other reasons to have our police officers responding and being on scene as events may play out. I also think about the fact that while federal agents have no requirement for body cams, our police officers are required to have their body cameras on at all times when responding to a call. And that creates documentation, that creates something that as we all proceed in this world, we can look at and we can know that there was something captured that is real, that we can stand by, that we can have to ground us in whatever might happen afterwards. And I think more than ever, finding ways to ground ourselves in what is real and factual and accurate is just impossible to overstate the importance of that. And I think that I'm thinking about ways to really get us there, to think about, this as the public safety preparation method that we would take for anything else that we might suspect could happen in our community. When we think about, other threats, be it weather this weekend or major community events where we will prep and rehearse, or, the worst things that can happen in our community with shooters or terrorism, we practice. We figure out all of the steps and we learn them and we know them and we are ready. And I think that we are in a moment now where having that level of preparation is going to help all of us. I think that we have had many conversations internally about what it looks like to respond and what is our role and what is the community's role and all of that. And I think we need to continue to do that, and we need to continue to communicate what that looks like so that people have expectations. They know when things are going right and they know when things are going wrong. And I don't know where we go from here in the DC region. I think this is, the hardest time I can remember in my life, which is certainly fewer years than many people who live around here. But it's frightening to see how fragile things are at the moment. And I think the more we can do locally, whether that is in our official capacities or frankly in our personal and individual capacities, the better off we'll be, because we have to hold on to something here, and we have to believe that there is something on the other side of this in order to make our way and get through it. And so we are available. We are here to be where you want us to be, maybe not at all times, but make the invitation, come talk to us. We want to be where people need us to be, because we understand that we have a leadership role in this. At the same time, we can't know everything that's going on. And so if you don't ask, we may not, there are many times where we're not at events, not because we don't want to be, but because we didn't know about it. So we're working hard, we're doing our best, and there's so much more to do over the next weeks and months and years. But I think this group is very committed to doing that and to getting it done. And I appreciate that everyone in this room on this very cold Saturday morning before a snowstorm is also pretty darn committed to be able to show up for something like this. So thank you all, and I'll let us get on with our meeting now.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair Coffey. Fragile moment, but based on the comments of the four of you, I have confidence, and based on the work that I know we have done and the work that the county manager does and our staff, I have confidence that we can meet this moment. I'm not here Pollyannish to say that it's going to be easy, and I don't think that right now we can see the end. I will say, as we transition, those of you who came for public comment, you are welcome to stay, but you will not offend me in the least if you turn around, walk out right now, because there are other things to do on this day. As you do, there's one last topic that I want to name. First, Jenny, thanks so much for being here, for being here this morning. You didn't get business today, but she's our ombudsman representative, and really appreciate that. And then next, Mr. Schwartz, can you talk about, turns out we have a kind of a fragile weather moment coming the next few days. So can you talk a little bit about our preparations and what our public needs to know for the snow that's coming?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the board. It's going to take a few minutes, and I hope people will bear with me because there's a lot to cover. As you mentioned, we're set to get one of the bigger storms we've had in some time, and the National Weather Service has issued a storm warning, winter storm warning for Arlington, starting tonight through Monday morning, with some combination of snow and sleet. And we're also going to be feeling some brutally cold temperatures over the next few days. It's warmed up to 14 degrees outside, though, so a little bit better than 10 degrees this morning. And my understanding is that we can expect the temperatures to stay below freezing at least through Groundhog Day. That is what I have heard. Whatever we get, it's going to be with us for a while. So we're hoping that everybody's gone out and made their preparations and do so this morning. And rest assured that we've been monitoring the storm all week, and we've been making necessary plans. So our snow operations have already started and involve most all of our departments, as well as partners from the outside. We have several hundred people who start working in shifts to maintain our core services. And for the next few days at least, we're going to have crews working around the clock. Now, it's been a while since we've had a storm of this potential impact, so I just wanted to go through the 4 phases we have of snow removal. Right now we're in phase 1, which means pre-treating some of the roads and trails. You may have seen some of the brine out on our roads. Plowing, that starts in phase 2, and that's only after there's at least 2 inches of snow on the ground. And in phase 2, crews are going to focus on keeping main arteries passable for emergency vehicles and public transportation. And those routes that we've prioritized, that's all available on our website. So this includes snow emergency routes, arterial streets, main bus routes, and roads to hospitals, fire stations, metro stations, and our police headquarters. So obviously our goal is to clear all the snow from streets and trails as soon as possible. But following a big snowstorm like this, it can usually take at least 48 hours before the snow stops before we can realistically get into residential neighborhoods. And that's part of phase 3. And even after treatment, remember that residential streets are probably only going to be passable with one lane, and you may not see bare pavement, so keep that in mind. Once the plows are active, you can follow that along in our snow activity map on our website and watch the plows move around the county in almost real time. And the map has been updated this year with new plow names from our community, including Plowy McPlowface, Blizzard of Oz, The Life of a Snow Girl. I guess my entries of Drake Slay and Brian a Helper didn't make the cut.
So cheesy.
You can also check out VDOT's snow map to see the status of VDOT maintained roadways. Remember, VDOT is responsible for some roads in the county. I-66 and 395, of course, but also Washington Boulevard, Langston Boulevard, and Arlington Boulevard, Route 50, among others. So now that I've talked a lot about some of the work the county is going to do, major winter events also require, hopefully, some help from the community to keep everybody safe. So the most important thing you can do, stay off the roads. Now, I'm going to say that, and I know people will think that applies to everybody but themselves, but it applies to everybody. Only drive if you absolutely must. This helps our crews be efficient in the plowing operations and minimize safety risks. And also, and I know Mr. Carantonis and I talked about this a lot last year when we had a snowstorm, by staying off the road, that means try not to walk in the roads either, okay?
Yeah.
Because that people somehow feel like that's okay. If you live on one of the county's narrow roads, remove the cars from on-street parking if you can, and coordinate with your neighbors to park on one side of the street if that's an option. Avoid parking head-in on the cul-de-sacs so that our plows have more room to maneuver, and only use the recommended amount of chemical de-icers if you can on sidewalks and driveways. Try to clear snow from sidewalks, fire hydrants, storm drains, and catch basins. Now, this is the last one. That last point about clearing from sidewalks I want to spend a few minutes on. The county is responsible for clearing sidewalks around county-owned facilities like parks, schools, libraries, community centers, transit stops, and other public buildings. But in the county, there are over 700 miles of sidewalks. And the county, I'm going to put it out there quite simply, that's too many miles of sidewalks for us to get to immediately and expect to be cleared. So that's why, where practical, we need the help of property owners to clear the sidewalk in front of their homes or businesses. By clearing the sidewalk after snowfall, that helps obviously to prevent ice from forming and lingering, keeps routes safe for pedestrians, and maintains bus stops, crosswalks, and community spaces. Now, we have spent a lot of time this week reaching out to civic associations and business owners, really encouraging them to do their part and keep Arlington safe and walkable. And if you're hearing this and you want to help, please, I've seen many civic association notes on this. Reach out to your civic association to find out how you can help your neighbors. Neighbor-to-neighbor help is going to be incredibly important. And we've got all the information on all civic associations on the county website, including how to contact them to get more information. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Notice what I said. We have a county snow ordinance. In my admonition to help clear snow where practical, that ordinance, I remember very well, was put in place after snowpocalypse of 2010, and it lays out requirements for clearing by residents based on the amount of snow. And it also allows me to suspend enforcement if, in my judgment, that is appropriate. Now, in this state, I think what is pretty obvious, the ordinance can be a clumsy tool at times for a storm like this, where we may face almost solid ice deposited on our sidewalks. So I've met multiple times with our code enforcement staff and CPHD to discuss how we're going to use that ordinance. And my view is it's impractical and really unfair to penalize people for an inability to remove inches of ice from sidewalks in front of their homes. It's very possible that, as I noted, this situation could exist for at least another week. And so while county buildings and school buildings, with a lot of staff help and with contractors, will be our focus immediately on snow and ice removal, the below normal temperatures mean that unless you're out literally shoveling the snow and ice as it falls, and you make sure no one ever walks on it, it's going to become compacted and it's going to turn into ice. And we'll have to use a lot of our equipment and intense physical labor and chemicals to remove that ice. We're committed to doing that so that people can get to schools as quickly as possible. We've reached out to VDOT to partner with us, but unfortunately, I'm not expecting a lot of help from them when it comes to sidewalks. That is not part of their playbook, and we've had conversations with them, and we've reached out to our staff. We'll try to pitch in where possible. And so, as to ordinance enforcement, I can't comfortably ask people to risk their own health if the conditions are too treacherous to clear. But to the extent they aren't, I really expect people to do their best. So our best approach is obviously is to stay put, not risk some of your health. Getting on a pedestrian path that isn't clear, frankly, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We're going to focus on making as many places in our community quickly accessible for our first responders and try to keep everybody safe and accessible. And so as the storm progresses, as we get into phase 4, I'm going to encourage everyone to check the county website and our social media for updates. You'll also be able to find the snow issues form, which we open up a little bit after the storm has stopped, for people to put in concerns about issues that have not been dealt with. Now, I'm going to say it's going to take us time to get things, and sometimes we miss things. I'm going to really encourage people to let us know. We'll do our best to follow up on that. And then tomorrow at 3 o'clock, I hope everybody will take the time to root the New England Patriots to victory. So, thank you.
Mr. Schwartz, thank you. You had a great start, and then those last concluding piece is a little tricky. That said, with the groans, stay safe, stay warm. There have been some power outages this week. When you have a long time without power, it's dangerous. Prepare. And those who want to stay can. We'll be going into our consent agenda. So again,
Mr. Chair,
is there any questions? Yes, Mr. Spain, and then Mr. Karantonis.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Chair. And while we have the county manager, I just wanted to thank him for his leadership. Just two areas I was thinking about as you had this conversation. Can you talk just a little bit about our homelessness, our homeless population here in Arlington, and if we have, I'm sure we do, areas where they can go just so the public can know and you can pass this word. And then lastly, the children are going to be out, out at the parks. You can believe that. And so just I think as we look at our priority levels, and again, I don't want to get into all the minutiae of how you prioritize, we can expect with this amount of snow, my 4.5-year-old granddaughter already got a sled and people are ready to start pulling her through the park. How are you going to prioritize our parks? And then you said something about the governor and VDOT. Perhaps we don't expect much from them. I know we're in a state of emergency. Are there any additional resources outside of VDOT that will be coming perhaps to Arlington?
Right, so
probably not.
Last question first, which is we have a large cadre of contractor support that we've already brought in that supplements our staff. And the thing I was talking about VDOT, and VDOT does a fantastic job maintaining hundreds and thousands of miles of roads in the Commonwealth, but sidewalks aren't necessarily in their playbook. We've had direct conversations with them. They've said to the extent they have resources, they'll try to get to them. But I'm reminded specifically of an extended stretch on Cherry Hill Lane. Cherry Hill Lane. Yeah, across from Dorothyham School, where the sun doesn't really shine very much. I've asked some of our firefighters at Station 3 to lend a hand, and some have asked school to go across the street. There's going to be some challenges there. As for our parks, we will do our best, but remember what I said, our priority is to get the routes to schools done and our roads free. It may be a while till we get to the spaces around our parks. Now, that doesn't mean that someone is going to stay away with their sled. I understand that. And so I'm just going to ask people to take some care. As to our homeless, our hypothermia shelter and capacity is obviously going to be open and probably filled. We're working with our nonprofit partners, including Path Forward and other organizations. And again, we're hoping as many people who are out on the street will come inside, and we're hoping all of them will. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but we're paying close attention to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. County Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Mr. Karantonis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Spain took my thunder because I was going to ask about hypothermia. This is a serious one because of the persistent cold, and already last year we've seen that we have a number of individuals who, for whatever reason, refuse to be sheltered, so they are in acute danger. And then I wanted to say two things. First and foremost, a profound thank you to all the county staff that is already working and will be working throughout, including law enforcement and the fire department and everybody who will be on the streets. And then my profound dismay that my proposal to name a snowplow after Mark Schultz hasn't been accepted. This is absolutely unacceptable. I don't know. I mean, it's like the 5th year in a row.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. It's a little bit out of order given the New England Patriots comment, but we'll take it under advisement. I don't see any other questions. So at long last, we will move on to our consent agenda. Folks still can stay if you want the consent agenda. But first, I have to ask our clerk, have any items been pulled from our consent agenda?
Yes, there are 2 items that have been removed. The first is item number 28B, only part B of this item, which is a request to advertise GLUP amendments located at 3130 Langston Boulevard, and then item number 29, which is a number of actions related to the consideration of the 2847 Wilson Boulevard Special GLUP study. So that's 28B and 29.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So I will move, and look for a second after I do, that the county board adopt the county manager's recommendations for items on the consent agenda, excluding pulled item 28B and 29. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Karantonis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Consent agenda without those 2 items passes unanimously 5-0. Now, I will seek to move through the consent agenda because there are important items on it, but I'll seek to do so quickly. I think Chris Berman in the fastest 3 minutes in sports, but I will still try to cover everything. I'm on the timer. So we will hold a public hearing on anything pulled from this consent agenda by the public or the board at the start of the evening segment of our recess board meeting on Tuesday, January 3rd, whether we're here virtually or in person. The public hearing will begin no earlier than 6:30 p.m., which is a slight change from last year. If you want to speak on one or more of the items pulled from today's consent agenda, you can register on the county board's website starting today or call our office at 703-228-3130 on Monday. The board just voted to approve the consent agenda, which includes minor site plan amendments, use permits, ordinance amendments, requests to advertise, and plenty more. These items were put on the consent agenda because they were considered non-controversial, but that does not mean they are not important. Several are in particular, but all of them are important for us to move forward with. First, item 12, specimen trees. The county board designated 2 trees on private property as specimen trees. Sugar maple at 1710, you see it on the left, and a black oak at 4022 18th Road. They were recommended as outstanding examples of their species. The black oak is located on a property with a neighboring developer, and we've been able to work the development's land disturbance application preceded the designation, but the developer is helping us out to minimize impact on the roots of the tree. Next slide. A couple of items related to electric vehicles. An initiating resolution to allow for a zoning study. We're trying to understand and plan well as we respond to electric vehicles. It will allow us to evaluate how existing standards apply to changing infrastructure. Second, you see $400,000 in state funds for the design and installation of 4 publicly accessible electric vehicle charging ports. That's Barcroft Community Center, parking garage, and then 4200 South 4 Mile Run, Walter Reed Community Center, Bluemont Park. That funding is critical. We'll keep moving forward there. A couple of items on the next slide related to rehabilitation of sanitary sewer lines. We saw one that was being worked on this week in the cold. Item 16 is a 2,500 linear foot section of Gulf Run, and it was constructed in 1963. They used modern technology to try and work on this. Item 17 is in Roslyn. It was constructed in the 1930s. It's a lot of work. That infrastructure is the stuff that no one cares about unless it doesn't work. We are investing in it. Next slide, item 21. We have a South George Mason Drive needs multimodal improvements. This is an area where that Vision Zero is looked at. It's very important. So we are, VDOT is committing the county, or we've approved a project agreement with VDOT to work on this, and it's the sort of safety work that we need to continue to work on. Next slide. Item 23, permanent supportive housing. We were talking about homeless earlier. Those who are in permanent supportive housing are sometimes at risk if there weren't permanent supportive housing for homelessness. We have a number of agreements that allow us to sort of disperse those living and have committed affordable units that will help those in need of that sort of supportive housing. It's very important work that our housing advocates will tell you about quite consistently. Item 26, near and dear to all of our hearts. It's the next slide. It's Carlin Springs Road. Just want to give a huge thank you to staff for finding the right person to talk with the right people to reach an easement agreement. This is one of our last easement agreements on one side of the road so that the students at Kenmore and the students at Carlin Springs will be safer as they're walking along Carlin Springs Road. I was talking about this 4 years ago. I'm kind of feeling incredulous that this is happening 4 years later, and I'm so thrilled. Not because we didn't work on it, it just takes time. Last, two, a request to advertise. One is 28A, which is Lecky Gardens site. It's amendment, it's a hearing. Request to advertise are essentially, we advertise it and then we have the hearing. This would help facilitate the development of a 10-story residential building with 249 units, 100% of which would be committed affordable housing. This is a preliminary step. The next step will come over time. I believe it would be slated at the site plan. The next is item 30 on the next page is consider at the February board meeting establishing permanently the county's performance parking program. I think this is a great idea. I noticed that my parking bills are going up as a result of this, but it's still the right thing to do. So with that is our consent agenda. Now we'll move on to our regular agenda. We're ready to move on. Mr. Clerk, would you call the first item, please? I didn't make it in 3 minutes, but I tried.
Of course, yes. Our first regular.
Yeah.
All good. Our first regular agenda item today is item number 34. It's a number of actions related to the Inn of Roslyn at 1601 Fairfax Drive, including the associated rezoning, site plan, and number of vacations associated with the site. So number 34, Inn of Roslyn, 1601.
Turn off the sound, honey.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. For those online, could you either mute your phone or Mr. Kushner will help us there?
It's on. You get that. It's early.
Thank you. That's enough. We'll turn to Mr. Manager for the staff presentation as we get going. Mr. Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to turn it over to Peter Schultz, who will walk us through the presentation. He's assisted by Mike Kaluski and a few other staff from DES, and we have other people online if needed. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Mr. Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Mr. Schultz.
Let's see, do you have my, yep, you have my presentation, great. This item is the rezoning, new site plan, and a vacation for the Inn of Roslyn, located at 1601 Fairfax Drive. Just to get the highlights up first, the summary of the requested actions are a rezoning from S3A to RA 615 of a portion of Fairfax Drive to be vacated. The next is a site plan, which I'll briefly describe later. And the third action requested today is an ordinance to vacate a portion of an easement for sidewalk and a portion of Fairfax Drive that is no longer necessary for transportation purposes. While we summarize our staff analysis right up front here, it is important to note that staff's recommendation of denial is based on our analysis of the site plan and the adopted guidance for the site with the Fort Myers Heights North area plan, and was not based on the technical aspects of the ordinance, which the zoning amendment that you adopted just earlier is meant to correct. We believe that the site plan does not comply with the vision expressed in the Fort Myers Heights North Area Plan with regard to the goal for a combination of preservation and continuation of neighborhood character through a mix of preservation and redevelopment opportunities. Such elements included the building form, site layout and building placement, and provision of open space, and the specific site-based recommendations for this site. So therefore, staff recommends denial of these subject applications. To orient everybody quickly, this is 1601 Fairfax Drive between Pierce and Queen Streets in the Fort Myers Heights North planning area outside of Roslyn along US Route 50, Arlington Boulevard. General land use plan actually designates this site as part of a special district, the Fort Myers Heights North Special District, within which the existing RA 615 zoning. You can do special development techniques according to the adopted plan for the area. The applicant, I should say, is requesting a vacation of a portion of Fairfax Drive that's zoned S3A, which to RA 615 to match the rest of the site. And this is just about 3,000 square feet. The proposed site plan, which the developer will probably go into greater detail in their presentation, is to demolish the motel on the site, construct an 8-story building with 142 dwelling units with an approximately 5.3 floor area ratio. The maximum 8-story is the maximum height you can get for stick over concrete construction. Beyond that, you would need entirely concrete construction. Excuse me. The plan guidance for the site is the Fort Myer Heights North Plan, adopted in 2008 after a 3-year planning period because of the threat of by right development replacing historic and market rate affordable apartment complexes and fundamentally changing the character of this site, which was acknowledged to be outside the central areas of Rosslyn and Courthouse. The plan vision and goals in particular called for preservation of neighborhood character, presence of public and private open space, site design and architectural elements reminiscent of the multifamily housing that's been built in that neighborhood from the 1930s to the 50s. However, the southern portion of the neighborhood, which this site is located in, is designated for high-density redevelopment with preservation of historic resources in the northern end of the site. You can see the existing site at the corner of this planning area along US Route 50 at the lowest elevation of this neighborhood. The highest densities and the highest heights are permitted here in this site. Neighborhood precedent images, this is including a neighboring property on the top right, intended for preservation and conservation and showing the prevailing neighborhood character. The Fort Myer Heights North Plan had specific guidance for open spaces, even private open spaces. Private property should evoke the garden element of a garden apartment concept, should be situated as generally depicted on the illustrative examples and planted in a manner in keeping with the garden apartment aesthetic, and tree canopy is a particular concern. Building placement was also key to landscaping features representing the aesthetic, again, going back to the intent of the plan to honor and preserve while updating these garden apartment principles. As we can see, there were 2 scenarios developed for this particular block, one in which the entire block was redeveloped at once, and then one in which the motel is redeveloped separately. That, of course, did not happen. The northern half of the block was redeveloped separately. So in that particular case, we only got 2 existing market rate affordable buildings preserved instead of 3 with a larger open space in between. So what happens here in alternative B, which is what is the guidance for this site under this separate redevelopment scenario we're looking at, was that the southern part of the site would have what they described as a substantial private open space on the southern half of the block, and a building that it could be up to 12 stories. So just showing what we have here, about 10 years ago, 2013, Union on Queen is the development, and it includes those 2 historic buildings. So again, just I already mentioned alternative B. There's no target size given specifically for the open space. The intent of open space, among other things, was not only to help preserve the prevailing character of the neighborhood, to distinguish it from other neighborhoods, but also that to soften the possible of a high 12-story building from the public realm. That the building that is being constructed, the effect of it would be the density and height mitigated by green space in the corner of the site. So the developer will show you in their landscape plan. This is an example of their landscape plan. On the far right is the proposed open space. We can see the evolution through the 3 years of discussing with the applicant about the trying to get that private open space on that southeast corner there facing Pierce Street. The current proposal is about 10 feet deep by about 50 feet long. And again, this shows what an earlier proposal was and a current proposal. So just to put the two things side by side, what the plan had envisioned for the site and what the developer is offering here through their chosen development technique, which again is the stick over concrete construction, which necessitates a more horizontal construction in order to provide the same density that perhaps a 12-story building could bring. And as requested, do provide, I will not read all this, but the developer is, there are multiple ways actually to earn density on this site. First, just to get up to 3.24 FAR, the developer has to do all of the standard site plan mitigation things, including undergrounding the utilities, a transportation demand management plan, new sidewalks, curb and gutter, street trees, contribute to public art, contribute to the underground utility fund, have in-building wireless, and a base affordable housing contribution plus. The special district here requires that in order to earn this density, they have to provide on-site affordable housing. So in this bucket, you have the base zoning ordinance affordable housing, then you have the requirements of this special district. The developer is asking for additional density on top of that, and through that, popularly known as community benefits, but what they are offering here is 6 additional on-site CAF units, so for a total of 13 units and possibly 14 if the base affordable housing is given as an on-site unit rather than cash. I also do things to honor the existing building, which is on the historic resources inventory, including a historic marker. They'll work with historic preservation staff on that. Preservation or recreation of the 50 sign in the lobby, which many people in the HALRB and in the site plan review committee thought was a distinguishing feature of the site. They're earning that additional density through that and through green building. Committing to the various items you see there in order to get the amount of density that they are requesting. This was a public process. As you see, the site plan was accepted in 2023, February, and an online engagement in April of that year. However, the applicant had went back due to concerns expressed by staff and also through the online engagement about various aspects of the plan, including the open space issue. There were SPRC meetings in spring of last year, the September commission meetings leading to the county board hearing now, which had been deferred from September. Just to let you know, the additional public process and went through, because the site is on the historic resources inventory as a top 1/3 important site, according to the county board's adopted guidelines for such sites, it did get reviewed by the HALRB. They voted 13 to no to do not support because generally they believe preserving such structures in a substantial way is the more important part of with the county board's HRI policy. It went in front of the Transportation Commission, 10 to 0, recommended approval, found that there were no issues with consistency with the master transportation plan. September 3rd went to the Planning Commission. I'll talk a little about that next. September 4th went to the Housing Commission, unanimous vote to support. The Planning Commission voted all of them to, I wouldn't say, excuse me, not all of them, but all of the items were eventually recommended for approval by the Planning Commission, the rezoning, the site plan, and the vacation request, not without some controversy. They did unusually, for an approval, make a statement about why they supported approval of this site. That while it isn't aligned with critical elements of the Fort Myers Heights North Plan, they believe it would be an improvement and provide important community benefits on this site. For the reasons articulated earlier in staff's analysis, that there is too much of a not compliance with the values of the plan, which emphasizes open space, on-site landscaping, canopy trees. Staff has recommended, and the applicant has been aware for quite some time, that staff was recommending denial of the site plan and therefore denial all of the items because, again, as in our analysis, it does not substantially comply with critical parts of the Fort Myers Heights North Plan. And that is it for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Now we'll turn to the applicant, and we're in the, there was deferral of this, and you have presentations. We simultaneously, go ahead, Mr. Schultz.
Oh, just to let you know, I'm going to be presenting they'll speak. I'm going to be
Running the
putting up
slides.
the applicants. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. And we do have a presentation. Nicholas Cummings with Walsh Galucci here on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Olson is going to start our presentation. I'll finish it, but once it comes up on the screen, he'll get going.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. As Nick mentioned, I'm Josh Olson with Monument Realty, the applicant, and we've been working on this project for a number of years. I'll just walk briefly through the project for your benefit. You can see a overall rendering now on the right in this image. And on the left, you have the current site condition, including the Inn of Roslyn, which the site is sometimes referred to as. A lot of the building design took references from the existing building. So for instance, the light gray cantilever panels that you see on the proposed building, those are references to the 50 sign, which is really the most distinguishing feature of the existing Motor Court Motel. And then beyond that, though, we take those pretty bold moves, which are really at the scale of Arlington Boulevard, Route 50 there, similar to the sign, meant to be big and really read at the speed of cars traveling on that road. But then we begin to soften it. So as you turn the corner from those two pieces, we have a wood cladding-like material, so softer. And then as you get down lower in the building, we're using a peach-colored brick, which is the same colored brick used on the existing motel. So overall, as Mr. Schultz mentioned, we have 141 units. It's an 8-story building. 13 of those units are affordable. So that's about 9% of the total. And of those 13 units, over half will be 2-bedroom affordable units. The other thing we've done, and this really came out of the SPRC process, was begin to add more biophilic elements to the building design. So you can see on the first 3 levels, the greenery there that really starts from the 4th level where we have a terrace area. That setback is something called for in the area plan. So the first 3 levels are supposed to present a unified streetscape along Fairfax Drive and then a setback above that. We took that opportunity to introduce greenery and then bring it all the way down to the base of the building. That's very similar to what the Red Lion Hotel site immediately to the east did, and you see that in the rendering on the right. So they have a similar cascading green effect along Fairfax Drive. And I think ultimately this will be very effective along Fairfax Drive. I mean, this stretch of Fairfax Drive, if both these projects are completed, will feel completely different. We'll not only have this greenery at an upper level continuing along Fairfax Drive, but the streetscape is also going to be completely different. So you can see in the rendering on the right and a little bit in the one on the left, the number of street trees that will be planted, much wider sidewalks than what exists currently. These two projects combined also allow for a realignment and expansion of the Arlington Boulevard Trail, which is between Fairfax Drive and Arlington Boulevard. And that's made possible by slightly shifting the alignment of Fairfax Drive with these two projects. As over the years, as we've worked through this, I've actually been surprised by a number of people who've come up to me and said that they use this as a way of commuting to the Roslyn Metro Station along Fairfax Drive. I would have thought people would go up the hill and then go down Clarendon or Wilson Boulevard, but when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense. You're going up and then going down to get to the Metro. If you walk along Fairfax Drive, you're at one level, and then the rise at Fort Myer Drive is much less. So this actually is a commuting path for people walking to the Metro. You can see in these renderings, especially the one on the left, what the current condition is. For a path that people are using, a public access, it's very uninviting. The current site, the one on the left, has, unless there's a few weeds growing in the parking lot, there's basically no greenery on the site at all. That's both the site and the surrounding streetscape. It's got very narrow sidewalks. It doesn't have a single street tree on all 3 frontages. You see on the right what we've proposed. That's at the corner of Pierce and Fairfax. This is the private open space. Measured from the curb to the face of the building, it's 21 feet. I know it's always hard from these renderings to really get a sense of scale, but just to give you a sense, if you took a two-story building and laid it on its side, that would be the amount of space that we're creating there. If you could, Mr. Schultz, go to the next slide. And this is the full site plan, which Mr. Schultz showed earlier. So in addition to that 21-foot area, which will have 2 ornamental trees on it, we also have new street trees all around the site and are introducing other trees on the site itself on that terrace level that I mentioned, and also on the second floor, which sets back from the property to the north. So in total, we're introducing 20 trees to this site, which is pretty remarkable given that it's only a half-acre site. This is a classic infill site, the sort of infill development that's normally encouraged in the Roslyn-Ballston corridor. It's a difficult site. You can see it's trapezoidal in shape. It's also got some pretty steep topography, and it's got bedrock almost immediately beneath the surface. So those were all the things that we were working with and trying to solve for this. Next slide, please. This is also focusing on the trees that we're providing. So in this image, you can see all 20 of them that are being provided. The Chesapeake Bay coverage requirement is 10%, and if we're counting both street trees and trees on site, we're getting to 19%, which again, for a half-acre site is a pretty big accomplishment. And pointing out, repeating that there's nothing on the site right now. So these are all brand new trees that'll be on the site along with this building. So I said that I'd keep it relatively short, so I'll wrap up. Just to sum up, we're introducing 141 apartments, of which 13 will be affordable. We've coordinated our design with the neighboring property to the east, which is being developed. We've also coordinated with the county to expand the Arlington Boulevard Trail. And we're turning a site with 0 trees into one with 20. We received a positive vote from the Planning Commission, along with the Transportation Committee and the Housing Committee, and I'm hopeful that we can receive the same from you. With that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Cummings.
Yeah, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Olson. So I just wanted to briefly address how the project complies with the area plan and delivers a number of valuable community benefits. I think Josh hit on a lot of these, but you see up on the slide, we're delivering much needed affordable housing, new canopy trees, as was just mentioned, the ground level open space, the redeveloped Fairfax Drive streetscape, and squarely addressing specifically mentioned area plan goals as simple as things like creative parking strategies, just knocking that out of the park. These are all critically important county goals, especially affordable housing, the environmental stuff, canopy trees, transportation safety, all of that critically important county goals. All much more important, I'll submit, than the really aesthetic neighborhood preservation and neighborhood character issues that are identified by staff. And I'll submit, this is a bit of a personal opinion, but I don't think that those issues should ever be the determinative factor or the guiding principle for this board when assessing new housing. Aesthetics are important and they matter. I understand that the character of a neighborhood matters to many people in Arlington, but in this real estate market, in this environment, we need to produce housing and we need to find a way to get to yes. And as long as we are not sacrificing core principles of this county that I think I just identified that this project is accomplishing, we absolutely need to find a way to get these buildings built. We have, of course, consistently been at a different place than staff on this project. I do want to say that staff has advanced this project continually without complaint and set us up for every single hearing that we wanted to be in. We have not been delayed by them due to any disagreement on this, and I just want to commend them for that because in many localities, that would simply not be the practice and would not be possible. We would not be able to get to this hearing and even present this to you in an efficient manner if we didn't have staff support, and that's just different here. Arlington works in a way that is far more collaborative, thoughtful, and so I just want to say thank you on that and just express my respect and admiration for all the folks we've worked with throughout this. I also want to note that we have enjoyed strong support from the community, which is rare. We have representatives here from RAFOM this morning who I think are going to speak, and having them come out vociferously in support of this has been just an absolute treat, because that is not typical, and there was nothing specific that we were doing for their community association or anything in respect to this project other than proposing something that we thought was a real improvement for the neighborhood. So, you know, like I said, I think that those demonstrate a more nuanced understanding of the original intent and recommendations of the area plan, those thoughts that you're going to hear from RAFOM, but also that were expressed through the Planning Commission. I understand, of course, that staff is charged with enforcing a plan that was adopted by this board decades ago, right? And we have plans that are littered with site-specific recommendations that simply don't work. And it is really the work of the applicants and the board and everyone else to kind of figure out how to fix those and work through those issues in a collaborative fashion with the community, which we did here and I think was successful. I'll close with, there is, of course, we spoke about this morning, a dire shortage of housing in Arlington. It'll take a sustained effort over many years to find ways to get to yes, without sacrificing core values, to approve and, of course, ultimately build, which is the most crucial element, enough new housing to at least slow the growth of rent and address affordability concerns. But with this project and others like it, I think we are finding that way to get to yes, even if it required some nimble maneuvering and a lot of conversations. But we're all making progress together. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Mr. Olson. And clearly, we are smarter than our predecessors who had the prior plan. I'll just editorialize. But I'll say, I think we're next to our commissions, and that would be you, Ms. Bagley, if you will present the Planning Commission's pieces. But thank you both for being succinct in your presentations. Mindful that we did defer this earlier, but we also needed to give fulsome consideration today. And thank you as well for crediting the staff, even as there was that disagreement. Ms. Bagley, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, also County Board members. For the record, Nia Bagley, Planning Commission. In conferring with staff earlier this week, I was told initially my comments should be solely about the zoning amendment that came up. I am, however, perfectly prepared to address the September public Planning Commission hearing. So as you'll see on our letter, there were only really a couple of questions about the zoning ordinance that we heard earlier this month. One commissioner did say that had this item been presented concurrently with our hearing about the project itself in September, she would have voted differently. So I'm available for your questions, and certainly I'm prepared to speak to the September hearing as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bagley. Brevity is the soul of wit, and we will ask questions if we do have them. The script here indicates that I should go straight to discussion with the board, but I somehow think that our residents we might have public hearing items.
That is correct. Mr. Cushing. We do, in fact, have speakers on this item, beginning with Mr. Andrew Bryant, speaking for 2 minutes.
Mr. Bryant.
Good morning again. I'm going to speak with you to encourage you all to approve the project under consideration at the site of the Inn of Roslyn. The 141 apartments this development will bring much needed housing, including affordable housing, to the area and revitalize a lot which now contains a vacant motel. Allowing this eyesore to continue to sit undeveloped is certainly not good for the general welfare of the community or the improvement of Fort Myers Heights North. There's a high-rise apartment building, the Union on Queen Apartments, literally abutting this property that was approved under the Fort Myers Heights North Plan. The proposed building would be lower in height and contain more greenery than these apartments. It makes the development, if anything, closer to the neighborhood's plan, which I might add is outdated and urgently needs updating than the Union on Queen building. In addition, it doesn't remove any of the neighborhood's existing market rate affordable housing stock. The homes created by this project will be a welcome addition to the neighborhood, and I'm proud to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Our next speaker.
Our next speaker, speaking for 3 minutes, is Stuart Stein, followed by Mackenzie Webb.
Mr. Stein. There you go.
Hello. I worked on the Fort Myers Heights North plan for many years of very difficult negotiations, a process that, if I remember, was supposed to take just 6 months. I stand by the plan 100%, not at all outdated. In the years that have followed, the plan has done a great job of preserving this community, one that Carrie Johnson so wanted to save when she first proposed creating this plan. It should be remembered that the plan was not initiated to incentivize redevelopment. Instead, it was an attempt to protect the neighborhood from both Roslyn and Courthouse. The plan recognized that this is a distinct and separate area, in no way just a part of the R&B corridor. The Fort Myers Heights North study and then plan was very much in response to the accelerating loss of affordable housing and the continuous pressure to dismantle this diverse community and replace it with a continuation of Roslyn and Courthouse. I am thrilled with the addition of 13 new affordable units at the Inn of Roslyn site, a place where no affordable units currently exist. The goal of the plan was not 125 feet in height. The absolute maximum was 125 feet. The proposal totally complies with the height plan. The goal was not density above 3.24. It was something that was allowed for very specific reasons. We lost much of the original vision and hopes we had for Fairfax Drive in order to preserve the neighborhood. All that I have to do is look at the Gables building to remember that, or even Union on Queen and its huge bulk. We knew the Inn of Roslyn site would be very difficult if it was developed by itself, making it an orphan site. If you look at the example in the plan, this site developed by itself, you can see that in order to achieve open space, a far smaller scale building with much less density would be needed, not a larger one. I greatly appreciate the concerns of the staff. It is heartwarming to see them stand up for my community and the importance of the Fort Myers Heights plan, its goals and its vision. I see and thank Anthony and Peter in particular. However, I believe this proposal fully conforms with the expectations we had for this site when the plan was written. If a block was not consolidated, this project contributes to affordable housing and provides numerous trees. It also offers a possible solution for an orphan site that may actually get built. And I want to associate myself with what Leslie Arminsky says to you. And I wanted to just thank Mark for 10 years, and I think it was 5 years before that or something as deputy.
Thank you. Thank you. I won't call that quite out of order, but I will note that we're ready for you to wrap up, but your remarks were gracious. Thank you. Ms. Mackenzie Webb, I think, is next. Is that correct, Mr.
That's correct. Yep.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. My name is Mackenzie Webb. I live in Park Roslyn, about 150 feet from the site of this project. I'm here to ask the board to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good enough. This project will change the character of my neighborhood for the better. I moved to my current apartment a few days before the motel at the bottom of our hill was abandoned about 5 years ago. It's an eyesore. It has no green space. And I'm frustrated that while my rents have risen about 30% in the last 5 years, that property has been put to no beneficial use. I know that this is a tough choice. Look, the site plan's not perfect. I wish it had more room for green space. I wish it had more 2- and 3-bedroom units. But this proposal will make my neighborhood a better place to call home. The 10-foot strip of green space will be a welcome addition on a lot that is currently entirely asphalt and concrete. And the addition of new shade trees along Fairfax Drive is massively necessary on a road that runners and commuters like me walk along with no shade during the summer. Plus, 142 new homes is nothing to sneeze at. We need buildings like this if we're going to meet our housing goals. Please don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good enough. The alternative to this plan isn't the perfect plan. The alternative is that we get nothing for years as we try to figure out what to do with this abandoned motel. The perfect plan would cost too much and would make too little. It's not feasible. If this site plan is rejected, it will take years for a new project to be financed, planned, drawn up, and given approval. And in the meantime, my neighbors and I will continue to live next to an abandoned motel. Plus, now is actually the perfect time to put us through the inconvenience of new construction. We're already enduring traffic disruption, dust, and early morning noise from the construction at the former Red Lion Inn next door. Personally, I'd rather get all this construction at both sites done now rather than having to go through all of this again in a few years. I have tremendous respect for the county staff, and I'm grateful for their caring, good, hard work. And loath as I am to disagree with them on anything, this project will change the character of my neighborhood for the better. Please approve the site plan, the rezoning, and the ordinance to vacate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. Next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is Jason Schwartz, followed by Bernie Byrne.
Mr. Schwartz. No relation, I think.
And I have some slides, but it's okay if they don't come up.
Yep, you do. Give me just a moment.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, hi, my name is Jason Schwartz. I'm a Radnor Fort Myers Heights resident. My first ask is simple: approve the site plan without any further delay. Then the follow-up asks are to update the obsolete Fort Myers Heights North plan and obsolete area plans. And then also we must update the obsolete comp plan and associated sector plans. Next slide. This site plan is located next to the highway as shown. Calling for a green space here is, I know it could be of some use, but it's, putting green space next to highways is not necessarily the best thing to do. Next slide. The statement that this site plan does not functionally relate to other structures in this district is pretty ridiculous, as the one next door behind it is much taller, 12 stories. The loud and polluting highway traffic is the hazard, not the 8-story apartment building proposed. Next slide. The statement that the housing will not promote the public health, safety, and welfare of residents is another kind of ridiculous. The housing proposal is great and a complete improvement on the existing dilapidated motel, which, as stated before, will remain for years to come if you were to accept this language and reject the site plan. Next slide. Just 500 feet away from the site plan across the highway is the newly opened Holy Legacy Homes. These homes opened with great fanfare and celebration. While this brand new structure greatly changed the character of the previous site, I absolutely love this new housing. The building greatly enhances the public health, safety, and welfare of residents, just like the site plan before you will as well. Next slide. The reason for these kind of ridiculous assertions that I've highlighted for the site plan is due to the deliberate actions to not update our active planning documents. As you can see, most of them are very old, including the Boston sector plan, which is in black and white. It is clear that our planning is designed for housing scarcity. While there have been some minor tweaks, our comp plan over the last 60 years embodies Arlington's planning ethos as one where new housing outside of extremely narrow bullseyes is strictly limited. We must plan for a housing abundance so that a substantial new number of homes actually gets built. Challenging macroeconomic conditions, tariffs, labor, interest rates, and material costs, among other issues, make housing challenging to build. That means that extra efforts must be made so that housing is financially feasible. Planning intentions and aspirational platitudes are meaningless if there are no actions that enable a strong and robust pipeline of new housing deliveries. If we are to be a world-class urban community, we must deliver world-class housing outcomes. Next slide. San Diego and Los Angeles showcase a tale of two cities. San Diego has taken action to solve its housing shortage, but of course could do more, while LA deliberately has not. San Diego has a clear enforced general plan, while LA's general plan is outdated and inconsistent, like what you see with the site plan before you today. I believe that Arlington can rise up to tackle our housing shortage. I encourage you to approve this building and then take the necessary steps to end so much needless suffering due to the lack of homes in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. Presentation and quickly delivered. Next speaker.
Of course. A moment, please. All right, our next speaker is Bernie Byrne, followed by Lee Clark.
Mr. Byrne, I believe virtually.
Yes, Mr. Byrne, I can see you talking, but you are muted. If you can use the unmute function on your screen.
Mr. Byrne.
Mr. Byrne, we can still see you, and I can see that you're trying to talk. We're having trouble hearing you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
You can now. Go ahead, Mr. Byrne.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. I have problems with all the time with Teams. Reject this project. The project has little biophilia. The building's footprint takes up too much space. This is obvious. Leaving little space for the plantings. I don't think the neighbors really know what this is going to look like. The trees, there's little space for trees or other plantings, including that little piece of space on the east side of the site. Although there's some sidewalk, although there's some plants hanging from the ledges, there are really no green walls and no green roof. The green space on the east side of the site is much too small, as the staff report is recognized. This isn't a question of following a plan. This is a project of something that is simply too big and has no trees, or very few. The sidewalk is very wide. The planting strip for the straight trees is very narrow. These trees are not going to ever make much shade. The July 27th landscape plan for this project contains a general plant pool with many species. However, common milkweed, Asclepias syriaca, is not one of these. This is the most important milkweed for supporting monarch butterflies in this area. More than 80% of monarchs migrating in Mexico has fed on common milkweed as caterpillars. The plant pool does contain butterfly milkweed. However, monarchs lay few eggs on butterfly milkweed. This project is not going to help monarchs at all. The applicant needs to replace butterfly milkweed with common milkweed in the pool. Further, to help pollinators, the applicant should ensure that wind-pollinated grasses and sedges comprise less than 25% of all herbaceous plantings. The applicant has not done this, even though I've written to them. The pool contains many species that are not native to North America, or are native to North America, or not native to Arlington and vicinity. All should be native to Arlington. This is a dangerous project. It's going to spread invasives around the county. The plant pool contains many cultivars. Cultivars often have features that don't attract or support pollinators. Some features are toxic to insects. The applicant should remove all cultivars from the plant pool. There are probably about 40 of these. I've sent the county staff and the applicant a list of these undesirable plants. The county board should require the applicant to remove these plants from the project. The applicant should also place low fencing around all tree trenches and plantings, or elevate them to protect them from trampling and dogs. The plants will not survive very long if the applicant fails to do this. Now, I want you to look at that terrace that faces Fairfax Drive, about 4 feet up. It's all pavement. It's just a little bit of green space near the edge. This is not biophilic. This is probably one of the worst projects you'll see, despite what the neighbors think. It's going to do nothing for the neighbors except make a big green building, which is similar to Roslyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byrne. Next speaker.
Yes, our next speaker is Lee Clark, followed by our 5-minute speakers, Leslie Arminsky.
Good morning. My name's Lee Clark. I come from the far southwest corner of the county, where I live with my family, and I'm here to encourage your approval of this project. I think this is a great location for 140 new housing units. I think it's fantastic that it includes 13 affordable units. And I think it does a pretty good job of embracing the history of the site. I think these benefits far outweigh what is a limited amount of green space because it's just not feasible on this site to develop. And I hope you will vote to advance this project today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next speaker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Leslie Arminsky for 5 minutes. Give me just a moment.
I think it's still good morning.
Sure.
My name is Leslie Arminsky, and I represent the Radnor Fort Myer Heights Civic Association, also known as RAFUM. In evaluating the merits of the applicant's plan for the Inn of Roslyn site, it is important to note that the block was split with Union on Queen, built on the north side. We acknowledge the remaining site is topographically and size challenged. The developer proposes an 8-story stick-on concrete building similar to the construction height of the approved Red Lion project directly across North Pierce Street. Staff has been critical that the applicant's proposal does not provide sufficient open ground-level private green space and argues that the developer might go to 12 stories a potentially much more expensive proposition. We don't usually worry about a developer's cost, but we do if the requirements are to a level that no developer is going to undertake the project under current economic circumstances, and we wind up in a situation much like the Key Bridge Marriott, with a vacant site for many years. We don't want that here. We also don't see how a 12-story building is better for honoring the garden apartment aesthetic mentioned numerous times in the staff report, and we just don't think it is realistic in this economy. When I testified before the Planning Commission on September 3rd last year, I stated that on balance, Rape Farm believes the project should go forward. We still believe that it is compatible with the Fort Myers Heights North Plan as it is written. Not only do we believe that it complies with the plan, but also with the intent of the plan for this site. During the discussion amongst the Planning Commission members and county staff on
Mr. Orminsky, could you just move a little more towards the mic?
Sorry.
That's okay. There are a couple of people in the back.
Yeah, I get that.
No worries.
During the discussion amongst the Planning Commission members and county staff on September 3rd, there was consternation expressed by commission members who voted against or abstained on the site plan because they were reluctant to move forward on a recommendation to the county board that addresses some but not all of the goals in the Fort Myers Heights North Area Plan. It was so noted by one of the commissioners at the recent January 12, 2026 meeting, at which the Planning Commission unanimously recommended to the county board the proposed amendment that you adopted earlier today to the zoning code that allows the site plan to move forward. It was also noted that the Planning Commission would not have a chance to vote on the site plan before it came to the county board today. One commissioner said, as Commissioner Bagley mentioned, they said outright that they would have voted in favor if the zoning amendment was in place back in September. Now, some other aspects. The plan proposes a 0.44 parking ratio. We understand the move away from car dependence by the county, but the Rape Farm, as it usually does, disagrees and feels that the site is somewhat under-parked. The developer has promised to meet the county's green initiative at a minimum for EV charging. We would like more, but it's a start. We are very much in support of the 13 new committed affordable units that the developer is proposing to build on site where there previously had been none. We also appreciate the numerous trees along the sidewalks. In conclusion and on balance, Rape Farm believes the project should go forward. And I just want to mention that I really appreciate Peter Schultz's communications with me. He was very fast at answering any question I had, and I have nothing but admiration for staff. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Orminsky. Mr. Clerk, are there any more speakers on this item?
I do not have any other speakers on this item, no.
So the conversation is now with the board. Colleagues, what I'd like to do is get a motion on the table first, and then we can have questions. So I'll turn to Mr. Karantonis for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, I move first that the county board approve the subject application REZN 25-0003 and adopt the rezoning ordinance attached to the board report dated January 16th, 2026, namely to rezone from S-3A Special District to RA 6-15 Multiple Family Dwelling District for an approximately 3,000 square foot portion of the Fairfax Drive proposed to be vacated. And secondly, that the county board approve the application for a new site plan, that's SPLN 22-00010 for site plan number 471, and adopt the site plan ordinance attached to the board report dated January 16, 2026, namely to construct a multifamily building of up to 141 dwelling units with modifications to permit additional density, reduced residential parking ratio, one-way drive aisle width, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 1601 Fairfax Drive and a portion of Fairfax Drive proposed to be vacated subject to conditions. I further move that the County Board adopt the ordinance of vacation attached to the board report dated January 16, 2026, namely, to vacate first a portion of an existing easement for public sidewalk utilities and drainage purposes on a portion of the property owned by 1601 Fairfax Drive LLC, located at 1601 Fairfax Drive, and secondly, a portion of the Fairfax Drive right-of-way abutting the southern boundary of the parcel, all with conditions. That concludes the lengthy motion.
Thank you, Mr. Karatonis. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair Coffey. Mr. Karatonis, would you like to speak to your motion? Just you might want to include that most
I
of the
am
speakers.
not going to offer concluding remarks, Mr. Chair, but in introductory remarks to this conversation. Sure. So the motion is offered with profound recognition, first and foremost, for the reasons for which our professional staff has come to the recommendation to deny both the rezoning and the site plan application. So, Mr. Schutz, Mr. Verkoechea, and your colleagues and the entire team, I believe that you made the best possible straightforward read and interpretation of the Fort Myers Heights North plan, which was adopted in 2008 and which indeed uses very narrow prescriptive language, should evoke the garden element, should be situated as generally depicted in the illustrations. So the plan further provides a detailed alternative A and B for development scenario. And I think that our professional staff worked very diligently with the applicant so far and with the community, as we heard, to make this proposal fit into the plan and maximize the degree this proposal delivers on the plan's goals and earns the additional density for the applicant. So we saw significant work being done on housing, including the affordable housing part on site, by the way, which is an extra important point. Massing architecture and urbanism, I believe that they are more than appropriate in my humble opinion, and this is also a product of this lengthy process. A decent degree of historic preservation interpretation on the pre-existing historic asset. The building is well above average in environmental specs, and I think that it's also very well accepted, as we heard here in public testimony by the surrounding neighborhood and community. All the above, of course, are only real if the project is viable to build and operate. So in order to achieve this kind of feasibility, the project has to propose and to manage some trade-offs on delivering, for example, here, less private open space than the plan prescribes. I will be the first to recognize that given the narrow prescriptive language of the plan, of the guidance, staff had not many options but to recommend denial. However, the county board, us, we can and should take a different decision because it is our responsibility to decide whether or not the applicant's proposal is providing sufficient benefits to offset these trade-offs. And in my opinion, it does, and we'll have this conversation right after I conclude here. In addition, the county board has a responsibility to assess in what ways this feasibility of a project would play a role here. In 2013, Wesley built the Union Building just next door and left, as Mr. Stein pointed out, orphan the rest of the lot there, making it extra difficult to develop in the future. And we've seen that de facto because in these times since 2013, nothing happened except for the decay of the existing asset there. The board finally, as we heard also here in testimony, we recognize that we are facing a housing crisis, and this housing crisis is today. By the way, the intention of the plan, and Mr. Stein may remember that, and had many conversations with Carrie Johnson on that, was to preserve market rate affordable housing there, right? So it was about housing. The character and all this was kind of the corollary to that. Nice, but the core of the idea was there. Today, in order to create the same effect as to save and create the market rate housing of today and tomorrow, we need to follow a different policy, and this is to make projects like that viable. That concludes my introductory remarks, and I look forward to the conversation on the details.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Colleagues, sometimes we have categories of discussion. In this case, I don't see that as necessary. I will sort of lay out and once the lights are on, you guys go ahead. I will probably hold any concluding remarks to the end, but I will just say that Mr. Karantonis touched on, and other speakers touched on, the respect for staff in reading what you saw as the text of the documents. And I think it's important to reiterate that that's an appropriate step there. And then the other two issues, Mr. Burns spoke about some of the plantings and the biophilic pieces and open space. Then I think we might want to address a little bit, just sort of in particular, in addition to biophilia, the open space and the reasons why open space might not be best textually interpreted prior to the findings and the work that we've done. So that's the preface. If I don't see lights, over to you to make questions or further remarks or concluding remarks, if that's what you wish. Ms. Coffey.
Great. I think it's not uncommon when we have site plans for our neighbors to be asking for something different from what staff is recommending, but I do feel like we've got a little bit of a Freaky Friday moment here in terms of who is advocating in which direction. I have a question, I guess a clarifying question for Ms. Bagley around the conversation. I think, we review lots of materials in preparation for these meetings, and I do think that I missed that the letter PC submitted on the site plan item for this was the same letter from September. So you did not rehear the item. Okay. That's really helpful. And it was a very detailed letter, which is always great, but hard to follow sometimes when you know that there's conversations in the room. Can you just give us, I guess, a little bit of the color? You started to give a little bit of the color, but we have ultimately a split motion or split vote on the motion to recommend approval that does come down to an approval. And I'm wondering if you can just say a little bit more beyond, the numbers of the votes.
Thank you. I'd love to. To best summarize our September hearing, as planning commissioners, we look to and really rely on staff to inform as well as remind us how compliant a project is or is not with the available plans. They do not have the luxury of saying, this is what the plan says, but I think. As commissioners, we're keepers of the plan, but we do have the luxury of saying, but I think. Not to minimize our discussion in September, but from our letter, you can see how, as keepers of the plan, we struggled with this. So that would be my flavor of the meeting.
Great. I think that's really helpful. I think, we ask a lot here in Arlington when it comes to development. And I actually just kind of fortuitously was on Fairfax Drive yesterday getting onto Route 50, and so had to go by the site, which I think is a really good reminder of just how small and tight the area is here. I really do think that the digital images and everything do not give credit to just how limited this site is. And I think about, planning staff's job is to look at our planning documents and pledge fidelity to all of those documents. And I think I take it as one of my jobs to we are optimizing on 12 plus dimensions a lot of the time and trying to figure out how we can best serve all 12 dimensions in every single project. And the reality of that for me, I think, is that that doesn't always, it almost never means hitting 100% on 12 out of 12 things. It means making sure you're doing as much as you can where you can, and making sure that none of the elements should be left out or forgotten or deemed to be unimportant. But there's just so much going on here to think about and to consider. And I'm grateful that we were able to do a little bit, of bringing the zoning text into consistency with our other area plans and sector plans. I think that does give important both consistency across our zoning ordinance, but also to bring consistency to the standards that this board is able to apply as we make these decisions. And for me, it's hard to imagine a plan that fits on this site, that achieves more things without giving up on some of the other important things that we're asking for. I think, the point from Rayfom around 12 stories is not any more keeping with the garden apartment style, but to get the kind of density you would need to keep half the site an open space, you probably would need 12 or maybe higher to really make that functionally work. And when you think through kind of all of the other, options, all the other branches in a flow chart that we could go through, I think any changes we make moving in any direction is going to leave us dissatisfied on just a different dimension. And so with that, I am supportive of this. I think staff have worked really, really hard. I think the applicant and the neighborhood have been really good partners in this. And we deeply appreciate that Rayfom is consistently, a good player in this game, really working to represent your neighborhood and your residents, but also not to shut things down or just kind of walk away. I think it is one of the most productive civic association planning staff relationships that I witness when you guys come in here. You're so sharp, and maybe it's because you all have been doing this a long time, being so close to Roslyn and all the development that happens there. But it definitely shows your expertise and your specificity of comments. So I really do appreciate that. But I think this is a site plan where we are, the choice is really, do we wait 10 plus years to see if macroeconomics change? And maybe they will, maybe it's 15 or 20 or who knows. Or do we take a plan that, is really hitting, I would say, 11 out of 12 here, and move it forward with the understanding that you can't always be perfect. And for me, I'm ready to accept that this is maybe not perfect, but it's a pretty darn good project. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. Mr. Spain.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Vice Chair for your comments. And I'm not going to sit here to kind of relitigate all things appertaining to this particular project, but I will start with a few things, and it's going to end in this moment with a few questions to the applicant. First, to the chair of our planning commission, Nia, thank you for what you do. I've had the opportunity over the past year to see you even in your capacity as the vice chair and now the chair. And you, along with all of our commissioners, that's including transportation, parks, rec, C2E2, thank you for your commitment. You're not getting paid to do what you do, but you're here because you believe in it. And so thank you for being with us on this early morning. And, we receive a lot of emails and communications from folks in the community. And I see that Mr. Clark is here today. And Mr. Clark Lee, I want to thank you for coming up today and providing your comments to the board. I've also heard, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. And that is so true in this case. And Nick, you said something earlier in your comments about finding ways to get to yes. I wonder if you heard that before. I kind of like that. I love it. But despite the inconsistencies that we may see or in this plan, this project, quite in and of itself, is an improvement over the current and what we've heard non-functional site. And this is quite honestly the only feasible development in the short term to come, and perhaps even the long term. But to staff, I want to thank you for your hard work, Peter, and your communications with stakeholders. The board member Takis Karantonis said something quite pointedly, and this is for folks in the community perhaps to hear. We don't always agree. That's the board and staff, right? And I think as the keepers and shakers, I would call it, and the movers of policy, it's important to us, especially as we think about our housing crisis, to really think about what's next and how do we get to yes. And for those individuals in the Radar Fort Myers area that's been doing this for a while and following it, your support means a lot, right, as we move forward. But to the applicant, there's a few things that came up, and I read through a lot of the reports. Can you talk a little bit about, there's no trees on the site, right, but you're going to plant some trees. Can you just talk a little bit about tree survival, the type of replacement guarantees you may have, maintenance over time? Can we talk about that quickly? Yeah. And then, you've heard some conversations about milkweed and different type of native plants. Your intent there more pointedly, because as I was communicating with one of my colleagues, along Route 50, that's probably a really good location for abundance of milkweed. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. I'll start off, and then if Mr. Judd, who I know is online and is our landscape architect, or Mr. Olson right here next to me want to pipe in, please go ahead. What's nice about Arlington is that we have these site plan conditions, and they control a lot with the development and then operation and maintenance of a site in perpetuity. So every tree that has been shown on that canopy map, on that exhibit, we plant, we maintain, and if they die, we have to replant them. And the county can at least, enforce that by walking by the site and checking, which is a nice, easier enforcement maneuver than is probably typical for the county to enjoy. So we do replant, maintain, and keep healthy all of those trees. It's important. We talked to the county arborist in particular about where we can plant trees to get to greater canopy numbers. And we have these back and forth discussions about soil volumes and the amount of sunlight they get. And so we work really hard with the county to determine that every tree that we plant has a chance of survival. So we really do expect that all of these are going to thrive and that they're going to do well. But if they don't, it is on us to replace them all. Dr. Byrne, I think, is one of the most he's one of the best examples of an effective public advocacy campaign I've seen in a long time, and I love that it's a local one. I have seen record of him speaking about milkweed and monarch butterflies from site plans in the 80s. Yep. And so that's just a really nice thing to see, and I appreciate his consistency in those remarks. We commit on every single project at this point, in no small part because of what he has offered and done, to plant native plants, to include milkweed. Those choices are finalized at the landscape plan stage post-approval. But we do make a commitment now that we're ready to do that. And I think county staff has also been responsive on that because they guide that process at FLP to ensure what is actually in that final plan. And they have also been listening consistently over the decades as those points have been made publicly. So yes to milkweed and absolutely yes to keeping those trees.
And a few more here. I said something a few months ago when we were talking about global conditions, and we hear a lot of conversations about the rising costs of construction. And I tell folks, you have to think globally on a number of issues because it affects us locally. Can you talk a little bit about and explain to those that may be, tuning in why, building a taller building with less lot coverage is financially, quite honestly, infeasible under the current conditions, and that can be contributed to what's going on with tariffs and things like that. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because that hits us hard here at home. I don't think a lot of people see it, right? So can you talk to it?
Absolutely, and Mr. Olson can help on this because he is unquestionably the expert here.
Yeah.
There was discussion about could we, so we know that a 12-story building, steel and concrete on this
closer
site.
to your mic? Yeah.
We know that that makes a big difference. We know that a 12-story steel and concrete building on this site does not work. And the reason it does not work is because everything that goes into building a building, all of those costs, including steel, concrete, labor, financing, which is interest rates, all have to be paid for by the rents that you charge ultimately. So ultimately, people are going to have to be paying enough to cover all of that, and that's going to have to include a profit margin for investors that can compete with other places they can put money, which increasingly means things even like treasuries, which are like 5% or something, right? Which happens because of interest rates. You cannot get those rents at this location simply because it's too far from Metro. It's not something like, for example, a riverfront property where you could put very tall steel and concrete buildings confidently knowing that you can get the rents to cover the construction costs. At this location, at this part of the hill, it's just not going to happen. We, I think, calculated even very roughly what rents would need to be like, but if you imagine, it's essentially what they're charging at places like the Wendy and the Commodore right next to the Metro, where you have rents for single bedroom apartments closer to $4,000 a month. You can't sustain that at this location. It's down the hill. It's too far away from Metro. There is really no height that could be granted to us by the county board that would then justify that massing. Even if you go higher than 12, it doesn't add up because you can add more density to get more units, but you still, due to the cost of constructing each one of those units with steel and concrete, have to charge so much rent that you can't get. So even if we put a 20-story building here, it's not feasibly going to work. I don't think that would ever work for a lot of reasons, for this community, for this neighborhood, et cetera, and it's not a serious proposal. But from an economics and math perspective, it's a telling example of just the challenges in construction costs. And a lot of that is driven by global issues. It started with the pandemic, but there's been problems with the supply chain and problems with costs escalating for years and years and years.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Chair, I have one last comment, then I'm going to be done. And this is also for the applicant. I looked at a report from our C2E2 group folks, and there's a part in there about our diesel generators, and just want to run this by you. Have you considered battery storage or lower emission alternatives when it comes to sustainable energy in this project? I mean, diesel generate, any thought about battery alternatives perhaps?
This has been coming up on projects consistently, and I know it is an issue that matters because we're trying to get closer and closer to carbon neutrality, and a lot of buildings are getting to a point where they are all electric, but for the backup generator most frequently. I think, Josh, you can speak to perhaps the cost situation, the efficiencies in the products.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add the backup generator is just that. It's a generator, and its sole purpose is to run and get the elevators down to the ground floor and keep the emergency lights on. So the hope is that this generator is not operating frequently.
Unless it's a winter storm. Go ahead.
Well, hopefully we won't lose power, especially since we've all been undergrounding the utilities. I know that the industry has begun looking into battery backup. My understanding is that the cost and efficiency just isn't there, especially for this infrequent use. But I think with all things of this nature, we probably will get there eventually. I mean, that's the trend that everything is on. So I think that eventually we will get to where that is
Let's hope so.
effective.
As I close, I will just say this. So we're going to get some housing, multifamily units, right, which is going to be close to our highly transit accessible location. As we all know, this is going to be, we're going to activate a long vacant site, which is going to deliver and advances what I believe our climate and transportation goals are. And so, and we have substantial public benefits. So I look forward to supporting this. And Mr. Chair and Madam Vice Chair, thank you very much for your indulging us.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. Mr. Carantonis and Mrs. Cunningham.
I don't know if Ms. Cunningham was first.
Go ahead, Mr. Carantonis.
Okay, go.
She's indicating.
One thing, and that's for staff, maybe if it's okay, about transportation. This is about the parking ratio. So we just heard that the project is too far from the Rosslyn Metro Station, which, I understand the topography is important. It's, for some people, 10 minutes is too far. I hope we evolve and we consider 10 minutes a reasonable radius. But the question is, how does this rhyme with a a low parking ratio. I understand that it's also very difficult to dig in Roslyn and et cetera. So how do we reconcile that?
The ratio is based on the distance from the metro, and it is based on the adopted, about 10 years ago, I believe, maybe less, of the county board's adopted policy for multifamily residences in the metro corridors. And this is technically in a metro corridor. And if you remember Ryan Grimm, I believe, several years ago, he was the parking guru for the county and did a study of what are supportable parking ratios based on distance from the metro. And this is actually within that specific ratio. So while it is a modification from the zoning ordinance, because the zoning ordinance says one thing, 1 1/8 spaces per unit, or sometimes 1 spaces per unit, in this case, the proposed ratio is supported by that particular policy that the board adopted. And it is a very well transit-served, not just metro, but also bus systems too, along Fairfax Drive and in the neighborhood as well.
Yes, thank you. And someday maybe we really lean into do some decent public transportation on Arlington Boulevard. I continue to call it Arlington Boulevard, not Route 50. But how does this work for the applicant? Is that fine for your future tenants?
We dug as much parking as I think we feasibly could, because we dug to the bedrock and then even had to put some parking slightly above grade. That is another challenge, quite frankly, if you start to look at a taller building on this site, because if you tried to do 12 to 20 stories here, we'd have to find a way to park it. I do think that it would be above grade significant, and so then it just begins to stack up and up, because you do, especially if you're going to start to try to rent at obscene rents for this location, you have to start providing almost condo level parking too, to try to market it. It's very complicated. For this building, I think the parking supply is sufficient. We're confident in that. We have done as much as we can to squeeze things in. There's a lot of compact spaces in here. The legal parking ratio is fairly low because we had so many compact spaces just to fit as much as possible into this little garage above the bedrock, that I think that effectively we have almost, I want to say a 0.6, which is not bad, closer to what you see for really sort of peer buildings that are newer around here.
Yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
They have additional parking spaces that don't meet our zoning standards. Our practice has been lately to allow parking spaces like that to be handled by whatever property manager. It doesn't count for zoning purposes. And even the ones that do count for zoning purposes, they could go even lower, actually they could go down to 0.4 parking. They're actually at a 0.44 parking ratio, which is, a few spaces above what the rock bottom was recommended for this site. But we believe also, and for the newer board members, this is something we always state, site plan properties don't qualify for residential parking permits. If you live in a site plan building, you can't get a neighborhood residential parking permit if there is in that neighborhood, which I don't think there is, but that's another thing to consider when we reduce these parking ratios, that they then can't go out and park in the neighborhood easily.
And to be clear, I mean, we love the transit access from this site and do believe in that as a value here. It's an economic reality that folks will pay more in rent for something that is at a quote-unquote prime location directly next to a transit stop. Those are simply two separate factors for us. I mean, we do like that this is transit accessible, and we feel like it is easily walkable to Roslyn, and certainly to the metro station up the hill. And there's going to be plenty of people who live here and don't have a car. They'll just be far more willing to ride the bus, which hopefully is a better and better system every single year and closer to what people enjoy in, quite frankly, London, where it's an incredibly reliable and efficient system that works about as well as Metro does for everybody here. So, yeah.
Right. The orders of magnitude of ridership in the London system is, I think, 1 to 15. So anyway, the second thing that I have only two more questions. The second thing is on open space, because one thing that is a trade-off here is this corner open space, even if the plan demands a private, but still an open space, green space, etc. So the sector or the subsector there has a full park, hillside park, that is literally walking distance from there, very, very close by, even if it's a little bit higher on the hill. And there are a couple of other assets like on Road Street, et cetera. Do you feel that if we go with our proposal here, that we create a deficiency in the availability of open and green space in this neighborhood? Is that setting us up for other problems further down the road?
Well, remember, staff's recommendation was based on that the open space and the building, layouts work together in a way that would, as one of the top values of this plan was to kind of honor and sort of continue the garden aesthetic of the area by having canopy trees and things like that. Now, was this site, was not considered for public use, and it wasn't considered, to be a recreational type use, but it was intent. Open spaces in good urban design practice are intent to also work hand in hand with the building to soften the impact of the building on neighboring properties and on the public. So while it wasn't, it's not necessarily that there's going to be a deficit of parkland in this area. It was that the intent was that this block have some private open space in order to mitigate the impact of both the Pierce on Queen and this whatever mooted redevelopment would have been on this site. So that's what staff's recommendation was based more on.
Okay. Actually, I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. I might have a couple eventually closing thoughts on open space, but first to you, Ms. Cunningham.
Yeah, just very briefly on open space to close that out. We also heard from our Park and Recreation Commission creative ideas about investing in other parts of the community. I think that can't be a site plan condition, if I understand correctly, but I would just invite you to lean into that spirit as the building comes together, as the lease up happens. Maybe there's a way to do a parks guide or to do a annual planting or something, but I think recognizing that we are likely to make a compromise here on open space, given all the externalities, just thinking about that would be really, really great. And the other one quickly is the utility undergrounding. So I think if we go back to page 21, utility undergrounding is pretty standard for all of our projects. Your transformer, however, remains above ground, which is not our preference. And I wonder if you could say a little bit more about the trade-offs there and confirm that in other projects that will not be a trend.
It might be a trend. I'll let Josh, Mr. Olson, answer this, but I will say first that placing these transformers on virtually every project has been an enormously difficult process with Dominion, and the coordination with county staff has been positive, but they, I think, struggle even with the changing rules and preferences from the utility providers of how these have to be installed, because it gets to how do they access them, and then their inflexible rules about how that works. And so that is a challenge for us. Usually staff is working with us in a way that's positive that can help us underground these, but I have a number of them on projects where they've been above grade, and it's been because they had to be.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So there's a number of things with the transformers. So first of all, even though they are exposed to the air above, they are actually partially sunken in the site. So they will be a few feet below the level of the sidewalk where they're located, and obviously they'll be screened. There'll be planting in front of them. So I think walking down the sidewalk, you wouldn't even notice that they're there. You certainly wouldn't be able to see them directly, both because they're sunken and because they're screened. Yes, Dominion is very difficult to deal with on the transformers. One thing that has become an issue as of late is that putting them underground, the vault size that they're calling for is just massive. And so we're talking about parking. It's either going to take up parking or it's going to take up something else to accommodate these vaults, whereas for whatever reason, if they're slightly below grade or at grade, that those distances are not as great. And so it makes it easier to fit it on a tough site like this one.
So I think I'll turn that to the manager as a follow-up item. I think this, for our very space-constrained community and also for safety and anti-terrorism activities, it would be good to work with Dominion on kind of setting a standard or setting some opportunities to both make it faster and potentially waive some of those size requirements. So I think we have friendly leadership in Richmond, and I think that that might be something we could really focus on over the next couple of years. I'm hearing it over and over, and it does drive housing costs. It does drive open space that's lost, and then it also is going to drive parking challenges and cost. Okay. Last one is on affordable housing. Also on page 21, our staff have laid out the trade-offs here about affordable housing. And first of all, just reminding the community that when there's an affordable housing contribution today, we are still limited by state code, working on it, very much working on it. And that gets us an unrealistic number, right? So it's like 100 and something thousand when our units tend to cost 500 plus. So can you share a little bit about how you guys went through thinking about affordable housing? It looks like this is a more favorable and more on-site, and I guess to staff as well, because I'm sure there was a dialogue, but much more on-site than is typical, also much larger. Can you share the thoughts and the trade-offs you guys went through?
Yeah, Mr. Schultz had a great slide on it, I think, earlier, but the Radnor-Fort Myers Heights area plan has a tiered way that you earn density. And so really the base density of the site on which you calculate the base affordable housing contribution, or that contribution that's calculated through the zoning ordinance values, that's on the first 1.65 FAR. And so that's where you're getting that 100,000 or so. And that's why it's so small, because that's on a small amount of density, especially for a project in Arlington. For the next 1.6 whatever through 3.24, we earned that with a established rubric that I want to say something like 20% of the density, 20%. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. And those I think are the preference, or really the recommendation, is that those are on site. And knowing that that was a expectation, we planned for it. And then once you look at how we're going to earn the density above the 3.24 FAR, beyond what we got from the green building bonus, because we're already doing units on site to earn the tranche of density in the middle, we were happy to earn the rest of it with on-site units. From there, we discuss with staff, and we get what's called, we get an appraisal. We had to get one for the vacations anyways. The county uses that to value the density when we're vacating it, but we also get an appraisal that tells us the value of community benefits. It's the same number. And so that gives us a rough cash value for the bonus density. That then gets translated into what is the value of subsidized units on site at 60% AMI for 30 years. And we discuss and debate with housing staff what that value is, because that is calculated using things like, well, what's the rent going to be over time? Things like that, where we might disagree with staff because we project rents often over time that are higher than they think. Might be the future rents, which increases the value of that subsidy. We go back and forth. Staff are pretty sharp negotiators. They're good stewards of the county's resources. And we look at comparable rents, et cetera, and we arrive at a number. We then look at what are the bedroom compositions, because we have a value, and then we're going to, all right, what's the composition going to be? Usually staff wants at least half of them family size, and so we work through that, and that gets us closer to a unit count. Here we were happy to offer up more larger units and to be a little bit more generous, understanding that we had other challenges on this project and wanted to put our best foot forward in every way that we could. So that's like the full story, including a little bit of a lesson on how these things work.
Yeah, great. And it just bears repeating because it is complicated. And for many in our community, it's you don't get quite as many reps.
Yep.
Last thing on housing is I know we are of a slightly mixed opinion here on the dais, but I would honor that we do have a housing crisis nationally and in the Commonwealth. Again, I would reiterate that we are meeting our housing goals overall for supply in Arlington, which is hard and really a testament to our staff and to our community members. But my memory is that this one is particularly exciting because in addition to the on-site committed affordable, you're essentially creating some new market rate affordable-ish kind of stock, which we don't have much of. Usually when we create new supply, it is, it is kind of luxury, right? And it takes a few years for it to become few decades for it to become more market rate affordable. Can you speak to that real briefly? And I know my colleagues are probably ready to move on.
Sure. And again, Mr. Olson's going to be the expert there, but simply by virtue of location, rents are lower, because this goes to the point I was making earlier about where can you sustain steel and concrete construction, high-rise construction, well, where the rents can be the highest. So by virtue of making that statement, we are also telling you that the rents here would be at a market rate lower than they are in Roslyn and Courthouse. That is not to say that any of us in a sort of common sense way would look at what rent is anywhere in Arlington right now and say, you know what, that sounds affordable, because quite frankly, none of it is. But relatively within the market, it is a better opportunity. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that the two go hand in hand, which is if we're doing the lower rents, lower than what you get on the top of the hill, then we also need a more affordable construction type, which is not the high-rise steel and concrete. And I think ultimately it's good, right? We'll have a spectrum of rents from the highest rents up at the top and with the great views looking back towards DC, and slightly lower rents near the bottom of the hill.
And before we get to lease up on these buildings one day, they'll still be great. Locations are great. No one should think this is in any way, shape, or form substandard. This and the next door building are very, very nice buildings.
I will just close by thanking Mr. Stein and the thousands, I'm sure, of other community members who have created this plan, stood by this plan, and also thoughtfully considered how conditions are changing. I often think we should, on all federal forms, we have a time burden to fill them out. I feel like each of these plans should have the number of community hours that went into it and staff hours, which I think in most cases is like a six-figure number. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. So I will just note a couple of things. First, procedurally, I think it was touched on, and I'll look for a head nod or an agreement from our attorney at some point. We did make a zoning change that was in consent, and the difference between passing on consent, the effective difference between passing on the zoning change on consent and passing it as a regular item is no effective difference, correct?
No effective difference.
Okay, great. Then I just want to make a couple of points just to be thorough on open space, because that was the focus of staff's recommendation. The site is uniquely situated because it's bounded on three sides by roads. I used to drive by it all the time when I lived in Courthouse, and there is some safety issues right across the street. The site is completely impervious and has never had open space. I think Ms. Webb and some others made that point. There's a lot of open space nearby up the hill. There's that walkway through. There's a couple other spots. And we talked about the immediate and acute housing needs and overall plan objectives, which I think Ms. Cunningham touched on, Mr. Stein as well. So for all those reasons, I'm supportive. I don't believe there are any other comments. I'm ready to ask for a vote on unless there are any other particular comments. I'm ready to ask for a vote on Mr. Karantonis' motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 We may want to wait for.
So my question, Mr. Attorney, you made my question irrelevant. The vote is 5-0. Thank you to everyone who came. Thank you very much for the thoughtful testimony of a number of people and the work on this, to our Planning Commission Chair for being succinct, to all of us for working through this. Everybody have a great Saturday. Stay warm, stay safe, and we will move on forthwith to our next item, which is our last time. We're not breaking for lunch, so you guys can hang out, but we're going to go forward. Yes.
I may add one thing. Mr. Schultz and Mr. Verikoy, Chair, this was an amazingly good constructed report. This was a real piece, food for thought about how a board should be thinking about an evolving reality. We have a guidance that's 20 years ago, and how we work through. And at the same time, you offer to the board an option. I mean, because you actually worked the project as well. You didn't just, sit with the orthodoxy of, quote unquote, orthodoxy of the guidance, but actually actively tried to make it work until it was above your pay grade in metaphoric and literal terms. And I think it's very important to say to the board, well, now it's your turn. Thank you for giving us this option.
Thank you, Mr. Carantonis, and thank you, staff, each of you, for being here and being thorough. Thanks to those who spoke. Thank you, Mr. Olson, as well. I hope you have a good Saturday, and appreciate everyone. Now we will turn to the next item, which is, Mr. Clerk, can you call it, please?
Of course. Item number 35 is use permit and site plan amendment reviews for live entertainment or live entertainment and dancing for a couple of establishments in the Clarendon Live Entertainment Group. Noted as follows. First is the site plan amendment review for live entertainment and dancing for Bar Bow. The next is a use permit review for live entertainment for Don Tito. The next is a use permit review for live entertainment for Buena Vita. And the final is a use permit review for live entertainment and dancing for Clarendon Ballroom.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It's over to the manager for the staff presentation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. With me today is Cedric Sutherland, and Anthony Fusarelli is here. We also have Captain Douglas from our fire marshal's office sitting down there. And we have other staff that will be available virtually, but I'm going to turn it over to Cedric, or as I refer to him as Mr. Clegg.
Mr. Sutherland, your turn. What do you?
All right, thank you. I'm going to pull the presentation now.
Go.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon. Again, my name is Cedric Sutherland, and I'm an associate planner with the county's planning division. I've been serving as the county's liaison to the Clarendon Live Entertainment Group, also known as the CLEG, for the past few years. Today, with me, I have from the Arlington County Police Department, Lieutenant Riccio, Corporal Robertson, and Officer Rouse. From the Business Outreach and Public Engagement Office, I have, of the Fire Marshal's Office, I have Captain Douglas, who's seated before you. From Code Enforcement, John Santafemia and Ben Salaman. And lastly, with Zoning Enforcement, I have Inspector Noah Williams, and they will be available to discuss any specific questions related to their area expertise. All right. As a background, the CLEG was created in early 2000s to coordinate the county's engagement with the concentration of live entertainment venues in Clarendon. The purpose is to provide a forum for operators, county staff, and community stakeholders to discuss matters related to the concentration of live entertainment in the Clarendon neighborhood. This group meets twice a year and as needed. Further, with the establishment of the CLEG, the review cycle for live entertainment permits were consolidated to be reconsidered by the board every 2 years with an administrative review in the intervening years. Further, the Clarendon Sector Plan has noted that the Clarendon area has been a destination for dining and entertainment for over 50 years. During the scheduled review of the CLEG live entertainment permits in May 2025, the county board identified 4 establishments to be reviewed in 8 months in response to community concerns. They were Bar Bow, Don Tito, Buena Vita, and Clarendon Ballroom. The review of the CLEG, the review of the CLEG establishments requires support from multiple county agencies, including planning, zoning enforcement, code enforcement, Arlington County Police Department, and the Fire Marshal's Office, as well as Virginia Alcohol, Beverage, and Control.
Business Outreach
In the scheduling
Engagement Office,
In the scheduling of this review, the county board had set several criteria for operators to meet and staff to observe and report on. These include 95% TIPS compliance, no Virginia ABC violations, no zoning citations, 100% meeting participation, and payment of outstanding fines. During this review, staff noted that the Clarendon Ballroom received 1 citation for a failure to post information on available transportation options in the area, which was quickly resolved by the time of reinspection, approximately 2 weeks later. Additionally, representatives from Buena Vita did not attend the November 20th CLEG meeting, as well as having missed the past several meetings. These were the only two items that were noted that did not meet the criteria laid out during this review period. With this review, staff additionally tracked calls for service to each establishment. Overall, 86 calls for service. There was 86 calls for service, with only one call being attributed to loud noise at Clarendon Ballroom. In terms of public engagement, the Clarendon Courthouse Civic Association and the Ashton Heights Civic Association indicated that they had no issues with the renewal of any establishments. Further, staff has not heard back from the Lion Park Citizens Association. And lastly, the Lion Village Citizens Association identified several areas of non-compliance that they would like addressed, including the serving window to the outdoor cafe at Barbell being open during live entertainment activities. Further, they noted that trash around establishments continue to be an issue, as evidence of the previous night's activities can be seen in the mornings. While the Lion Village Civic Association has noted improvement during this eighth month period, they would like to see additional proactive and effective enforcement. Also, administrative reviews every 6 months, and a better reporting system for live entertainment concerns. The county manager's recommendations for renewal of the active live entertainment establishments for all but Buena Vita due to the failure to attend the last several CLEG meetings. However, the applicant does wish to maintain their live entertainment permit while they reorganize their restaurant operations and reconsider live entertainment programming. Therefore, the county manager's recommendation is to adopt the ordinance for item A, Barbell, with an administrative review in 4 months and a county board review in 16 months. Additionally, review items B and D, Don Tito's and Clarendon Ballroom respectively, with an administrative review in 4 months and a county board review in 16 months. These will align their review cycles with the rest of the CLEG group. And lastly, staff is recommending discontinue item C for Buena Vita for live entertainment at Buena Vita. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Sutherland. Next, we will hear, Mr. Clerk, you indicated we'll hear a presentation from our applicant.
Yes, we do have a number of applicants. I believe
Good.
either in the room and online. I'm not sure if we have a presentation or if they're just available for questions, so I'd defer to staff.
Just questions? Anybody want a presentation either here or online? Hearing none, we will be ready for questions. There also are a couple of public comments, and a couple of individuals signed up for public comments, so we may focus in that area, and we'll turn to that now. Mr. Clerk.
Absolutely. We do have a couple of public commenters on this item, beginning with our 2-minute speakers. Our first is Zoe Zhang, followed by our 3-minute speakers, Mr. Jay Brodsky.
Mr. Zhang, or Ms. Zhang, excuse me.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'd like to say a few words about Buena Vita. I'm a loyal customer and I'm a local resident of Arlington County. So I keep coming back to this restaurant because it has really nice food, but also how I feel here. From the moment you walk in, there's a sense of ease and respect. You just feel so comfortable being yourself there. And as a minority, that really matters to me. In some places, you just feel awkward and guarded without even knowing why. But here, I've never had that type of concerns. I'm always welcome and treated with genuine kindness, and that's why I'm not just a customer and I'm a loyal one, and I always stop by for a drink and a meal. I actually had dinner there just last night. It reminded me why I enjoy that place so much and why it stands out in this neighborhood. It's consistent, the service, the atmosphere, the efforts, the care they put into the whole experience. And this consistency builds the trust. This is not just a restaurant, but also a place that people feel comfortable returning to again. I really appreciate this restaurant. Buena Vida made a really positive addition to this community. It really makes this community a warm, friendly, and welcoming place. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sang.
Thank you. And our next speaker, speaking for 3 minutes, is Mr. Jay Brodsky.
Mr. Brodsky.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Vice Chair, County Board members, thank you for allowing me to speak on the topic of the Clarendon Live Entertainment Group special use permits today. In the interests of lunch, I come not with a PowerPoint, but simply with appreciation for the work of the zoning and code enforcement teams, the police, the fire marshal, all under the careful management of Deputy Manager Miller, who jointly contributed to what was a much more pleasant Clarendon bar season than the previous year. Now, this is not to say things are perfect. As you read in the Civic Association letter, some of our neighboring businesses struggle to pick up their customers' trash. The very businesses being discussed today continue to ignore the time restrictions on live entertainment or have their windows open during events. Several establishments are notoriously lax about screening for underage drinkers and have issues over serving their patrons. Still others simply decided to run their weekly club scene without any permit at all. I can't help but notice how clearly the ACPD report in today's agenda packet tells the story of our safety concerns. 3 of the Clarendon businesses with live music that we're discussing today had 119 public safety calls to their address in 6 months. The one establishment that eliminated its live music efforts had 1 call. That said, we're appreciative of the staff of the attention that staff gave to our concerns, and pleased to see the limited action proposed in today's report to enforce the terms of these special use permits. We fully expect to see more establishments have their permits revoked after the administrative review in May. Buena Vida isn't the only permit holder who regularly skips CLEG meetings. Several zoning complaints are in process for these CLEG establishments too. We know that the wheels of enforcement move slowly, but we hope that a careful review in the coming months will bring you further actionable items to continue improving the community experience in Clarendon and its surrounding neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brodsky. So I think that is all of our public speakers on this item. Is that correct?
That is all of our public speakers. I do want to note that Mr. Andrew Lewis, who I believe is with one of the, applicants had registered to speak as a public commenter. If they are in the room or online, Andrew Lewis.
Mr. Lewis, come forward, please. And we'll try to keep it succinct, but you're also an applicant, so go ahead and say what you need to share with us, please.
Sure. First, I would like to thank the chairman and the board for allowing me to speak here. My last time speaking with you guys was in May when we reviewed a similar issue with CLEG attendance with Buena Vida. Since that time, Buena Vida did take decisive action. We found that our live entertainment as it stood during that time was not serving our community, nor serving what we wanted to be in the Arlington neighborhood. This was an inherited problem, as I spoke to you guys in May about, that after we had transferred the ownership, these parties were ongoing. They were a headache for myself, my fellow managers, my fellow owners of Buena Vida, and we wanted to reshape them. Our reason for wanting to continue our permit is because our goal is to, over the next few months, develop a team and also a culture at my organization that would allow for something that both fits with what we would like to see in Clarendon and offer an alternative from the bombastic scene that you may see at some of our other CLEG members. Live entertainment is definitely part of the DNA of Clarendon, and we hope that it continues to be in the future. But in order to differentiate ourselves from the DJ-laden scene around us, we wanted to do something different. Live entertainment isn't going away in Clarendon, but as a result of our changes, we've had a few different things that were required of us. One was the 95% tips compliance. It was our goal to hit 100% tips compliance, and so myself and other managers at the location developed a system in which not a single person who would be serving a guest would be able to work unless they were either tips or RSVP compliant. We have maintained no ABC violations at Buena Vida. We also have no zoning citations. The only issue at heart is our CLEG meeting participation. After our May meeting, when I spoke to yourselves and with Cedric, I had assigned it to 2 managers to attend those meetings. During the times of those meetings, I would touch base with them regularly, as we do have a weekly manager meeting. I was assured multiple times that those meetings were attended and that all was well. After a recent conversation with Cedric, I found that those meetings were in fact not attended. And while that, among other things, had led to my decision, both of those managers have been moved to other locations as a result of their failure to attend those CLEG meetings. After a conversation with Cedric, I practically begged him to ensure that I would be the one who would receive those emails so that I myself could handle meeting participation and ensure full compliance on those fronts. As I said at the beginning, it's important for Buena Vida to maintain their license, as the resubmission process would be actually quite lengthy and costly for the business. Given the nature of the restaurant industry right now, the difficulties, as we've talked about in other parts of this meeting, with immigration enforcement, tariff, increasing costs on food and beverage, it's been a hard time for our local restaurant industry, and our goal would not be to have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on reapplying for this permit. What I can do is assure you that Buena Vida will be present. As a matter of fact, myself from Buena Vida will be present at all future CLEG meetings. I would like to create a program with my team and the new managers who have just recently started in January 1st at Buena Vida to develop something that can really reflect the culture and diversity of Arlington and offer a safe and pleasant alternative for our guests to enjoy live entertainment without extreme entertainment. And that is our goal. Thank you for giving me the time to speak. I'm sure it's probably more than the initial 3 minutes I requested, but that is what we at Buena Vida would like to request, understanding, of course, that we missed one item on our required participation for those meetings.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, correct?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure. Applicants, we don't have strict time limits on, but we love succinct applicants who give good information, and you are very helpful in that regard. If you can have a seat and stay close, we may have questions for you. It occurs to me that we've had a meeting that could have, if your chair hadn't talked about immigration a little longer, it might have gone shorter. But Captain Douglas, I believe, you have been here a while, and I will just ask, you may be here just if there are questions, but I would say, since you've been here a while, do you have anything in particular you'd like to share with us as we consider as we will also then bring it to the board and then have conversation. We will not start with a motion. We will do some fact finding. But did you want to share anything in particular with respect to your role in the process to this point? Go ahead.
No, not at this time. I will say that Buena Vida, they just went through new management. And Marcos, I believe is his name, and has been extremely receptive. So that has been a positive thing. I will say that both the public safety side, both the police and the fire, have done an amazing job with zoning and code enforcement to make sure that CLEG, is sustainable. So more to come on that.
Great. Thank you very much, Captain Douglas. I will say your comments are very helpful. They're don't necessarily make our decision point any easier with the comments of Mr. Brodsky. Now the conversation is with the board. I don't have a grand plan, folks. I do know Ms. Cunningham has been engaged a little bit on this. I'd like to turn to you first.
Yes, I have a question for staff. If we were to extend Buena Vida, allow them to keep their use permit for another try, what's the right period of time that you would like to see? I think to align it with others, would it be 4 months would be a review, or what would you prefer?
Right. Currently, we have all the CLEG establishments scheduled for a May administrative review and a county board review next year. However, if you wish to see how Buena Vita operates under their new live entertainment, it's under your purview. You can bring it back in a shorter time, maybe 6 months or 8 months, to see how they operate. And we can assess it at that point as well.
Okay. And Mr. Lewis, is there a time period that would feel right to you to kind of get beyond this attendance issue and prove the amazing work that you're doing?
I mean, I'm happy to submit to anything that Cedric or the county would request. I think every 3 months sounds very reasonable to me. It allows me to both keep Cedric updated on any changes that we'd like to make, what his thoughts would be on, as we try to steer this in a new direction. And I mean, I think 3 months quarterly is a good option for me.
Okay. Yeah, and we won't do that forever for sure. I guess as to my colleagues, I think I will be making an alternative motion or the motion to give a stay of execution here. And then, I think it could be one of two forms. One would be in 4 months, it would be an admin review, and Mr. Sutherland would kick it up to us if we need further review. If that doesn't feel comfortable, then whatever time period does feel comfortable with the board, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, 6 months.
So thank you very much for getting that, the direction you're headed out on the table. Let me see, on this question, because, timing-wise, CLEG twice a year, correct? And when's the next CLEG?
The next CLEG meeting will be in May.
In May, that administrative review is coterminous with the CLEG?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, so that's some oversight that would be relatively quickly. Okay, I'm just trying to sort of sort through the facts as I understand them. Mr. Karantonis.
Mr. Chair and Ms. Cunningham, I wanted to really pin down what is a reasonable and practical time. I really think that we should be thinking in terms of giving space for coming into full compliance, since especially all the surrounding testimony is actually positive here and doesn't raise any flag. So TIPS training is in, neighborhood liaison is in, our ARI membership is in. It's the CLEG participation that's missing, right?
Correct.
And the next time to check on the CLEG participation effectively would be May.
Correct.
So therefore, we have to shoot, beyond May, somewhere in June or July, to do an administrative review, right?
Yes, and I would say because he's not operating live entertainment at this current point, I think it would be helpful for him to have an idea, for us to get an idea of when he intends to start actually participating, having live entertainment, because then we'll be able to adjudicate their activities and how they operate their live entertainment.
Right. And that would be a period for administrative review and then a board review later.
Correct.
Because in the group B, I think it's 16 months for board review and 4 months for administrative.
Correct.
Right.
May this year and May next year.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's it. Maybe this informs a little bit better the amendment here.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Vice Chair Koff.
Thank you. I'm kind of intersecting with these dialogues, but then also really speaking to the overall kind of CLEG situation. I think I will also say as a neighbor, I have noticed an improvement. This summer, I think, went a lot better than last year. I know Mr. Brodsky and I have maintained open contact, making sure we pass everything along to the appropriate members of the team. And so deeply appreciative of all the energy and time that's gone into this. I think I also share a little bit of concern that if we solely return to the traditional review cycle, that in all the intervening months, there's not as much accountability, and there's not as much pressure, so to speak, on the establishments to make sure that they are adhering. And I think, we hear from staff, we can take this, the board can take it of their own motion. It doesn't have to be on cycle if something happens. And so, kind of trying to weigh all of the different interests and needs and resources that we have available to us. One thing that has been on my mind in order to try and, balance maintaining consistent follow-up and, real responsibility over the situation, while also not creating, a 3-month recurring board review, which I think we all agree is cumbersome and could not be met. How do we generate some sort of objective standards, kind of like the checklist that we created at the last board meeting for this review here, but something similar where as staff are noting things that are happening at these establishments where it could be very clear, okay, this would trigger the board to take it of our own motion. And I discussed that a little bit with Aaron Schreiber. I think we were not ready to figure those things out live here today. But I personally am very interested in pursuing this. I think that we need the clarity that isn't just, oh, well, if someone feels like something is bad enough, we can bring it back. But to really say, like, no, we have rules, and, if X happens, then you will be back here in front of the county board. And so that's the kind of accountability I'm interested in working towards, which I'm wondering, I know that the next review, if we return to the traditional cycle, would be an administrative only review. But if Mr. Manager, we could potentially have by May some of those accountability points, and maybe it's a manager's presentation, not a board item.
Yeah, I'm happy to come back in May with that. We've started thinking a little bit about that. And also, if you all, or also Mr. Brodsky, or other members of the community have objective criteria they think that would make sense, send them along.
Great. I will be brainstorming myself. But I think that, gives everyone the best balance. I note that we have seen demonstrable progress. I don't think it is worth us, kind of beating down on people when we know, we're not to perfection, but we have definitely taken big steps forward. I think the trash is the next area of focus and interest and improvement, and how we get there may take a little more creativity as it's public right of way, but it's also private entities, and so figuring that out. But I think having accountability really clearly built in to me is like the next priority step. And as long as we can commit to getting that, I think I would be okay with giving Buena Vida an opportunity to kind of catch back up. Understanding, the story from you all is helpful, and to put people back on the regular cycle that we've had previously, with that asterisk that as we develop clear criteria, we will be prepared to bring people back in front of the board as necessary. We do plenty of these meetings. We don't want to bring you all here just for the sake of us being here, but at the same time, it does begin to feel like if we do not have these public hearings, that people are not taking the criteria of the use permits sufficiently seriously. And so if we need to start exercising that a little more actively, I think I at least am ready and prepared to do so, but I want to do it in a judicious and intentional way by developing that objective criteria first. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Coffey. Over to Mr. Spain. I want to tease out, as we're moving towards May and additional understanding based in part on all of the things that have been said, I do want to tease out a little bit the alternative with due respect to the work that you've done in transferring managers. As Mr. Brodsky stayed, he was nice enough to say, let's have lunch soon. So I will want to tease that out, but Mr. Spain, you're first. I just wanted to name that I'll do that, and your judgment, you go first. But I will eventually want to tease that out a little bit.
Right. So first, I just want to kind of align my thoughts to our vice chair and where she's headed. As I prepared for this item, one of the things I recall, having 1 year under my belt here on the board, but last May, was that we laid out as a board and working with our staff some very clear expectations, right? And that, folks had to have some, sustained participation in the CLEG meetings. They were not optional, right? And that was for the continued operation of live entertainment and programming. And that those recommendations that we made as a body were central to this board's effort to ensure that we have coordinated management with our staff, with all stakeholders, and that we communicate effectively, and that we are responsive to the neighborhood concerns. What I'm very mindful of is coming in at the 11th hour and then trying to change the dynamic, because we've level set and set expectations. We had requirements. Those requirements were not met. And I can appreciate you coming here today from Buena Vista, sir, and saying, hey, we're going to make a difference. And I think that will happen, but I am still kind of digesting, I think one of my colleagues may want to do something different here, but I'm not sure if I'm there. Because I want everyone to succeed. But if we don't have checks and balances and we don't have accountability measures in place, then what are we doing as a board? And so that being said, I look forward to, I think we're going to have some extended conversation here. But with that, we have high expectations that anyone within the CLEG and those parties will continue to live up to the expectations that we set forward in compliance and taking on corrective actions and continued monitoring. And bottom line up front is accountability, right? So that being said, I'll pause for now, Mr. Chair, and turn it back over.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Spain. So I'm reminded of a friend of mine who taught middle school, and he said, his consequence to people was stop, or I will say stop again. That ain't accountability. This is a long time ago, but I never forget what he said, because that's not, middle schoolers don't care if you say stop, and they just keep on doing. And that is not meant to judge, other, the Clarendon and the institutions you have, but we have to have accountability. And so the questions that I want to tease out just to understand are about the consequences if we were to take staff's recommendation. And as I understand it, I think we had some conversation in briefings, and I'm searching here, is that I believe that on your use permits, there can be two consequences. One, that you would have to wait a year to reapply for the use permit. Is that one potential consequence?
That is correct. The ordinance says for some reason 360 days, not 65.
Okay, all right.
360 days.
So that's consistent. When I was a lawyer in California, Texas, we had the same deal, same sort of. That seems like a pretty strong consequence. Also, there's a need to pay.
Correct.
Is there a provision that we could waive the year-long delay? Is that correct or not?
Yes. Yes, the board can bring back the use permit on its own motion.
Got it. Do we have an understanding of, other than the timing for a delay, is there an understanding of what the cost for a reapplication of a permit would be? And this is one where you could call Anthony, you guys could all say, we don't know, but I'm just trying to tease out what happens if we decide not to do it.
I believe with your last budget, you increase the fee, but I'll turn to Anthony. He may know that fee offhand.
Okay. Anthony, you do not have to know all things, but I'm curious.
No, thank you. So I would just note that the current fee for that type of use permit for live entertainment is approximately $1,800. I will also note, though, that that is the fee for fiscal '26, understanding the manager will be bringing forward a proposal for budget as an RTA next month. And going forward, we're having ongoing considerations for what the fiscal '27 fees might be for all fees within the planning schedule.
Got it. For me, it's been a long time since I was a server, but 1,800 could be significant. And at the same time, it doesn't feel so outlandish that it couldn't be made with a great March Madness season or, a lot of people coming. I'm not making any judgment there. So I guess I would say that, I'm trying to tease out and understand. We've been able to get you as an applicant, we've gotten testimony, and we've also heard Mr. Brodsky. I guess I have to be very thankful to the vice chair because, as you'll remember keenly, Mr. Brodsky, we had a Zoom meeting where I was like, all I want to do is not overpromise that I'll fix everything tomorrow. And I said, your follow-up will be the most important thing. And of course, my follow-up was not so good compared to the vice chair. But I'm so thankful that I don't care which one of us follows up, as long as one of us follows up to address your concerns. At least for me, I hear you, Mr. Spain, on the consequence. I'm going to be in a space, since the managers were moved and since the things that you want fixed are things that I hope that Mr. Miller and, our new team that we've created, like trash and those other things, those don't seem quite as central as the sort of use permit pieces. I'm hoping we can provide some resources. So I guess I'm eager to have lunch, and I'm okay with where Ms. Cunningham is headed. But I want to sort of share with Mr. Sutherland and colleagues, if in 3 months it ain't better, I don't want to dilly-dally. I want to just hear administrative and say, let's make an example, because, consequences, when you just talk about them vaguely, are different than delivering one consequence so that the other operators will know that it ain't the same anymore. We have to have better results. And so that's a lot of my philosophizing, but I'm okay with Ms. Cunningham's thoughts. And I don't know, you may have a motion. Maybe we get a motion on the table, Ms. Cunningham, and then we have added discussion, unless, Mr. Spain, you feel like you want to further pull out facts that are important.
Yes. So this is for the applicant. So between now and May, do you plan to have live entertainment?
That depends on my new management team at that location. Our goal would be to have something more akin to a Latin jazz club rather than a true party the way it used to be, right? Mm-hmm. What our conversations with my management team have resulted in is a kind of a mutual understanding that it wasn't working well for my infrastructure. It wasn't working well for the neighborhood. It wasn't working well for my staff, who had to deal with unruly patrons and such. And we wanted to change the nature of what Buena Vida's live entertainment was. And it has been a long process because, of course, changing a culture and expectations from our guest as to what we'd be providing on a Saturday or Sunday evening for them to come to enjoy. If I did something very quickly, I would end up with the same guests who would now be very irate that their expectations are not met. But also I was looking to get the right team in place so that I could do this cohesively, intelligently, and safely. Ms. Zhang is one of our patrons who spoke earlier. She's a close friend of myself, the management team as well. She loves our restaurant because she feels that it's a place that makes her feel safe, right? And I can tell you from my own experience, when we first purchased that location, I would not have taken myself nor my wife to one of those events. But our goal is to have something where I would be jumping at the bit to take my wife on a wonderful date night to Buena Vida and enjoy some live music.
All right. So I guess to be a bit more pointed, you are stating here that as of right now, January 24th, it's just in conversations. You don't have anything planned per se for live entertainment between now and May.
If our next meeting with you guys is in 3 months, I would have expected to have at least one event before then.
One event.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just as a pilot to test how my new functional program would be outlaid.
So one, just let me say at the onset, I appreciate everything that your facility, business, and others bring to Arlington and Clarendon. I've frequent, and some of my adult children have frequent those establishments quite often over the past 18 years. But again, I am one where I want to give folks opportunity to kind of redeem themselves, totally get it. But there has to be a line by which if we don't draw a line, then people, and we don't have policies in place whereby to hold people to account, then people continuously manipulate the system and it goes on and on and on. And then staff becomes overworked, communities is disgruntled, and we're sitting up here trying to figure it all out. All because people told us, well, we'll change, right? So I hate to be so forward in, with this, but this is I think I've heard, my colleagues here, and we just got to get it right. And Mr. Manager, that means you're going to come back here soon at some point in time with some proposals to what our Vice Chair talked about, then I'll be open to hearing that. And thank everyone for their time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. I think we're ready for Ms. Cunningham's motion, and I think the implicit in it but not stated is that Ms. Coffey, you and Mr. Manager are going to do some work that's going to make the rest of us look good. But first to the motion.
I guess a question, does the board feel that needs to be memorialized in an additional motion, or is the verbal direction sufficient?
I guess I'll offer my 2 cents. My experience is that when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And so, Vice Chair Coffey, and so you don't always say you're going to do everything, but when you say you're going to do something, you do it. And so I don't need it in a motion, at least for my part.
All right, that's fine by me.
Okay, are we ready? Any other comments? Okay. I move that the county board adopt the county manager's recommendation in the board report dated January 16th, 2026 for Barbao, Down Tito, and Clarendon Ballroom, namely to 1, adopt the site plan amendment ordinance, Barbao, attached to the board report for approval of live entertainment and dancing at Barbao, subject to all previously approved conditions and the amended conditions in the board report with an administrative review in 4 months in May of 2026, and a county board review in 1 year and 4 months, which is May 2027. And in my mind, there's an asterisk because there's other work that will be going on, but that'll come later. And then number 2, renew the subject use permits for live entertainment with dancing where applicable for Don Tito and Clarendon Ballroom, subject to all previously approved conditions and the amended conditions in this report with an administrative review in 4 months, May 2026, and a county board review in 1 year and 4 months, May 2027. I further move that the county board renew the subject use permit for live entertainment at Buena Vida with an administrative review in 4 months, May 2026, and a county board review in 1 year and 4 months, May 2027.
Second. Is there a second?
Yeah.
Mr. Karantonis, seconds. Is there discussion? Go ahead. Ms. Cunningham, you want to speak to it?
I don't think we need a lot more discussion. I would say I think this was an unfortunate failure, and I do believe that it will be remedied in this case. And I think I just shout out to all of our restaurant operators. It's a really tough time, and so I'm glad we're able to save your time, and hopefully some expense, and hopefully turn this around really quickly so that we have a thriving business and a wonderful place for our community members to spend time and money.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Other comments? We'll go to Mr. Garantonis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to reflect a little bit on my colleagues,
thank you,
Mr. Spain's and Vice Chair's thoughts on that. It's absolutely correct that we care a lot about the guidance and about really getting to the result we want. The reason is not because we are some sort, very, very orthodox in that. It is because we know that it works very well for the sector. It makes Clarendon a safer, more attractive place. It's actually good for business and the business of everybody else that we do that this way. So there is no question about that. We have seen that in different times. So, and it took a lot of work, not only on the side of the county, but also, most importantly, on the side of the CLEG people, the entrepreneurs there, to get there. So when you hear the word accountability from these guys, it's basically a reflection of what others also expect. Your own colleagues and your own fellow entrepreneurs around the same sector. My position here is first and foremost a recognition that it's a pretty tough time. Economically, we have been hearing from a lot of businesses since, since 1 year at the very least, but also, with an increase in the cost in the basic cost of everything from the food, drink, and rent, and a concern about the employment of people who work for you. So we want to be careful about that, but we will be very vigilant on that. So the administrative review is a very serious review, and I think that you should really think of how best to advise your management on site to work with us. As we've heard, you're already doing that, so thank you for that down payment on this.
Thank you, Mr. Karantonis. Mr. Spain, we also have Captain Douglas wants to add something. Do you have a preference?
I'll yield to Captain Douglas.
Go ahead, Mr. Douglas. Captain Douglas.
Thank you, sir. I did want to let you know that through Cedric as well is that with Ms. Coffey, your comments about the trash and everything else, something that we have taken very seriously, and we have an extremely rough draft, but I will give credit to Don Tito's, I believe it's the manager, Joe, who requested maybe adopt a trash can. And that understandable, working with Cedric, that there's a lot of potential roadblocks, but we're trying to get through those, as well as trying to look for a more fair and equitable live entertainment where everybody gets the same hours, unless possibly through the board and everything, if they need to be reduction of hours because of some sort of infractions. That's something that we highly want to look into, just so that these businesses are taken care of. So I will say that those are on the front forward of all our meetings, and we have one actually here very soon. So.
Thank you, Captain Douglas. I'll send it to Mr. Spain, but I will say this before I do. Joy is sometimes in people doing public service damn well, and you stayed all morning, and then you said, I need to say something else, and you were succinct both times, and that is deeply appreciated, because what you do will have all the reflections on whether we are actually good in Mr. Brodsky and other residents, and so just a big thank you for those comments and your work. And that doesn't mean we know we'll have adopted trash can tomorrow, but I'm very grateful for the work. Mr. Spain.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to everyone who stuck around. I'm going to be mindful, and my colleague, Board Member Susan Cunningham, said something earlier about, a stay of execution that made me think about a lot of things. This is not a stay of execution, by the way. I will say that I will go gently into the good night with great reservation, but in compromise to what I've heard of my colleagues here today, with an expectation that whether it's 4 months, a year from now, that we will have moved the needle and done the things that have been asked upon our applicants in these endeavors. Again, I appreciate everything that folks have said about the economic times that we're in, the expectations, that we have here, but also, the community, right? And the folks that have to live in around that area and deal with whether it's the trash or the loud noise and everything that's going on. So it's a balance for all of us. So it's with some level of reservation, but I'm going to support the motion here. But I hope and expect that when round 2 comes around, that we would have made great strides in what you stated, sir, quite honestly, that you're going to do. And I wish you the best. And should you want to reach out to any of us, and myself included, to come by and have lunch or just have a conversation, I'm open to doing that. All right? Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spain. The question is on Ms. Cunningham's motion, which was seconded by Mr. Carantonis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. That motion passes 5-0. Mr. Kushner, do we have any other items to come before the board today?
There are no further items.
Got it. Everybody, stay safe, stay warm. We'll reconvene here Tuesday at 3 o'clock. We'll hear awards, recognitions, followed by a closed session. No earlier than 6:30, we will have other items. We'll reconvene for our regular hearing item then. A use permit for Scapegoat Beer Garden, Mr. Brodsky, you may want to know, will be first, then the pulled agenda items will be afterwards. Stay alert for the winter storm, and I promised, I estimated that we'd get out here a little sooner. I'm on the hook for that. Any objections? I don't see any. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.
In recess. We are in recess.